Kosmika. Hello, everybody. Hi, Pages. How are you doing? Hope you had a lovely day today. Happy Hump Day. It is Hump Day, yeah. For people in this part of the world, it is Hump Day. I think it is already Thursday in Europe and Japan. Hello. I'm pretty tired. But I have food on the way, so that'll help. But thank you for asking. Hope you are doing well. 皆様ごきげんよう、元気でしょうか? What was I doing? Oh yeah. Alright, we are back with more Final Fantasy IV The After Years. The grind continues. Let's see. Except now we are on the moon. We are on the moon. So things are going to be tougher to beat. But we finally managed to beat the gray coral. With some effort, we managed. So, hold on, let's see. Are there any... Oh wait, just kidding. No, we're using the chakra bands. Right. That's gonna help a lot. It doesn't help with paralysis, unfortunately, which is something that we can get from that gray coral, but at least we won't get poison or, you know, stuff like that. Those are really annoying. Let's see. Has anyone shared stuff? There's a... Okay. This is a Baldur's Gate playlist? What is this? Let's see. I'm gonna mute so we don't hear the ad. Should we make Baldur's Gate cartoons? I'm not going to play this because I fear there will be spoilers. I haven't progressed in Baldur's Gate since the time I streamed it. Unless there are no spoilers. Feel free to let me know if there are not any spoilers. But if there are, I will not play these cartoons, unfortunately. Let's see. Another one. You shared another one. Thank you. Dungeon Master Brennan Lee Mulligan answers D&D questions. Okay, this is from Wired. Okay. But I'll wait to find out if there are any spoilers first before loading that one up. There might be kinda more like Easter eggs, but you kinda need to play to get it. Okay, yeah, then I'll hold off on that one. All right. Feel free to like hang on to that one if so that we can maybe come back to it in like the distant future when I get to play Baldur's Gate. All right, let's see. Let's get the other one. The D&D question one. Okay.
Dungeon Master Brennan Lee Mulligan here to answer your questions from the internet. This is Dungeons and Dragons support.
Ah, tech support. Well, D&D support.
Okay, first question.
Okay,
Obama Prism VHS, the most iconic, parentheses, famous D&D monster. You gotta love a mimic. A monster disguised as a treasure chest. Now, I love these monsters because they only make sense in a world where so many people are going into haunted dungeons that entire strains of monsters can evolve just to eat adventurers. Think about how rare of a food source an adventurer is on Earth, and think about the fact that there's so many monsters out here being like, if I disguise myself as a treasure chest, at least one person a week is gonna open me up.
Yeah, okay.
I would say my favorite D&D monster has to go to the
Hello.
Hoot Growl.
I am okay, thank you. Wait, I am impatiently waiting for food to arrive.
Why would you mix an owl and a bear together?
Hope you are doing well.
Thank
you for asking.
Just have a regular bear. But no, we made them half owl. Incredible. No notes.
see.
This next question comes to us from @SparrowBoy. Is there any secret? How do you come up with such great
This one is
characters
weak to
and
fire, I
personalities?
remember.
I always feel empty-headed when having to create a D&D character. The things that not only are fun right away, but stay fun and sustainable a long time are creating characters that are
What are we eating
wrestling
tonight? Sushi.
with a heroic problem that I can keep coming back to. Perhaps their wizarding academy was burned
See.
down, or their
Does
parents
silence
were
work? It doesn't
heroes
use really
betrayed.
spells.
Perhaps a war is raging across
Send a
these
target
5
into an
kingdoms.
uncontrollable
Pick someone
rage?
from one of those kingdoms with something to lose. Not only on a physical level, but an emotional one as well. Pick
Blink is.
characters.
Oh, I can only do one
care
character at a
about
time for
the
Blink?
world they are
I
in.
see.
You will find yourself swept away by adventure very quickly indeed. That's my advice to you. This next
See,
question
does she
comes
know
to us from
Firaga? Okay,
I
no,
Love
only
Your
Fira.
Mom 3. Provocative. Question: What's the
Had that today
greatest
too?
magic
Yeah,
of
what kind?
all? Answer: friendship, right? The greatest magic of all is not friendship, it's chronomancy, the ability to control and warp time. If friendship were the greatest magic, look,
Wahoo!
it's a pet peeve of mine.
Wow. Oh my gosh, they're leveling up, guys. Oh.
Is friendship.
What the is wrong with you? There's a lot of stories out there where the greatest magic of all is love or friendship, and it's like,
Alright.
oh, because
Tuna?
you
Yum.
loved so well, it created a magic spell that protected you. That is so cruel to everybody else in that fictional world who died. Do you get it? If your love can magically protect
Oopsies.
you, then what follows from that is anyone who died didn't love hard enough. It's f***ed up. Just think about it for
He
2
has a
seconds,
point. He
all
has a
right?
point.
You can't be doing that. The greatest magic of all is powerful magic, and you should use that magic to help the people you love. They're not the same thing. Greatest magic of all, chronomancy.
Okay.
At Rogelio Val 123. So exactly, what are the stuff that you need to play
Another
Dungeons and Dragons? Do you need to buy separate
queer
sets of stuff, or
character.
do you make it yourself?
Yeah.
Rogelio, my friend, first thing you need is friends.
So the
and
twins.
That's hard to come by. I gotta tell
Podom
you.
and
The
Palom.
hustle needed to get 6 people to clear a Wednesday night is the stuff of legend. The rules of the game are contained in typically 3 books. We refer to them as like the core rule books. Sometimes the Dungeon Master will have those books available for you to come play. Sometimes they'll have them digitally, like on a service like D&D Beyond. Pencil and papers to record your character sheet.
All right.
This is what a typical character sheet looks like. You can get these online and print them out for yourselves, or you can store your character information on a digital character sheet as well. And some dice that generate random chance throughout
I
the
love
game.
dice.
You want to attack a
I
dragon? Well,
love
we don't just
dice.
decide that. Where's the fun in that?
What
We
weapon does
roll dice
Podom
to
have?
see if you strike true or not. So with dice, pencil and paper, some rule books, and some pals,
bow. Okay,
you can
great.
be playing Dungeons
I
and
wish
Dragons
that
right
Loperet
away.
sold bows.
Now, you may have seen a lot of D&D tables in popular media with cool little figurines and miniatures like my
Yeah.
friends right here. These miniatures are, listen, we can all agree, dope as hell, but they're
Yeah.
optional. Miniatures and
They are optional, it's
counters
true.
and tokens are there to physically represent battle and combat. But
Yeah.
that is technically an extra. You can, at your table, play in a style that is known as theater of the mind. I like to use the minis and the counters because there's a lot of abilities in D&D that are hard to keep track of. And having
Yeah.
a battlefield set out, I think, is worthwhile so that if someone casts a fireball, with one quick glance of my eyes, I know exactly how many enemies just blew up. This dragon has been one of my most long-used miniatures. I think I was like 1 or 2 years old when I got this dragon. He
Oh, have her
used
attack,
to
kick.
have a little spout of fire, but I might have chewed that off when I was a kid. Regardless, this dragon's been with me for a long, long time and served faithfully.
This might be
Good boy. Next question.
These-
From
yeah, these-
Drink
these-
Your Haterade
okay, maybe
on
not
Reddit,
Palom.
What is the best representation of D&D in pop culture? With Stranger Things boosting D&D nostalgia, I've been thinking a lot about pop
Yeah, those don't
culture
have much
representations
HP.
of D&D. What show or movie do you think has done the best job and why? I think what Stranger Things did that really helped D&D at a moment when a lot of cultural forces were conspiring to lift it up, and actually showed it as being really fun, inherently social, inherently thrilling, a activity that brings people together in shared storytelling. Baldur's
I
Gate,
need
people
to-
got to
I
fall
need
in love
to
with
finish
Karnak and
watching,
Astarion and these amazing characters, and trying to smooch, which is a part that they don't write about a lot in the textbooks.
Stranger
but believe
Things.
me,
I haven't
when you
watched
play the
past
game,
season 2.
People want to know if they can smooch. And at my table, as long as all parties involved have talked about it at session 0 and everyone has their thumbs up across the board, if we're going to be out here slaying and smiting, why not add smooching into the mix? What's so wrong with a nice smooch? I tell you. There was also a
Does he know
D&D movie
Bazaga? I think Bazaar is
that I
fine.
think did a very good job. It had the tone and tenor.
We're only cruising because these are the easier. These are the easier monsters to deal with.
Is that things get goofy. There will be moments of romance.
And I think it's because of the phase of the moon.
And so that movie did a good job of showing.
3 to me was a
some of the
dragon,
great
made me roll my eyes, but it's
that
needed for
exist
4.
in
Okay, interesting.
D&D worlds together. At Buck Ducky. I'm DMing a game for a bit, and I'm trying to learn how to make a female voice for an NPC, but I'm very bad with voices. I think that it's a mistake to try to like pitch up your voice for playing female characters. As a dungeon master, I have to play.
Wow, that was a lot of HP.
Because I'm playing everybody in the world that my players are going through. Someone told me recently that the characters that I make sound like me, meaning when I voice the character, I just use my regular voice, are women and bad guys. That's something I should unpack with a professional. I don't know why that is, but that's who gets my real
I
voice.
don't know what it's weak
just use
to.
my
Probably, I
regular
think
voice.
nothing actually, if I remember
Unless
correctly.
there's like a regional accent or they're
6.
older,
I did
you know,
6.
like if I'm playing
6
the Baba
damage.
Yagas,
Did someone say a little bit of piss?
ancient folkloric Russian witch. Where's my pet? You do the voice for the character. I don't think you need to do like a stereotypical woman.
Yeah.
At JL Moonlight 92.
Where?
Can you tell me how
We're
D&D
doing things, guys.
alignments
We're
work?
doing
How do I
things.
know if someone's lawful good or any one of the others? Alignment is an element of tracking player character ideals from earlier editions of the game. It was identified along 2 axes, your ethical and moral axes, and it produced 9 alignments. Lawful good, paladins, heroic, neutral good, most aligned with the good sphere above. Chaotic good, Robin Hood, those that stand against tyranny and oppression and fight for freedom. You have lawful neutral, which is a sort of automaton, rules for their own sake, neither good nor evil. True neutral, no values at all. Kind of cool, cynics maybe. Chaotic neutral, pure chaos for its own sake. Utter rebellion, anarchy. Lawful evil, the alignment of devils and those who seek conquest, tyranny, and oppression. Neutral evil, pure cruelty.
What if the amoeba was weak to
oblivion.
healing, like a giant
Chaotic
bacterium?
evil,
I looked it up. It does no
slaughter,
damage.
rampage, ruin, sort of
I think I even
violence
tried
of
it once, and I think
demonic
it healed.
realms.
Just
Those
I just healed it
non-alignments,
instead.
People love them because I don't know if you know this about human beings. They love personality charts. It stuck around for a long time, even though it's not the most robust way to categorize moral philosophy. But goddamn, people love a chart that tells them what kind of person they are.
Yeah,
From
that's
Camille
true.
Does D&D, the difference between paladins and warlocks is one's got an employer and the other's got a sugar daddy. But like, which one is
That
which?
is-
If
I've seen
anyone's got
that.
a sugar daddy, it's clerics.
I've seen
You
that
know it,
reference.
I know it. When we talk about paladins in D&D, we talk about heroic, holy
One has an
knights that
employer,
swear
one has a
oaths to
sugar
an ideal.
daddy.
When we talk about warlocks, we talk about people that have sworn a pact to an otherworldly entity capable of granting them magic. I believe that technically warlocks have the sugar daddy reputation kind of locked down, but I would argue that clerics are in a very similar relationship. I think the difference between a warlock and a cleric is aesthetic. More than it is anything sort of more tangible. But that's getting into fantasy, cosmology, and theology, which we simply don't have the time for. At Sizzletupkos. Why are wizards so squishy?
Can we
What,
watch
you
the
want
Cap
hit
Guide to
points
D&D
in
next?
addition
Sure.
to being able to bend reality with your mind? Wizards are so powerful. They're like the most powerful class in the game.
Can you
can
have
survive
a
those low levels. You're going to be
a
dominating
spear and a
battlefields
shield
from here
at the
till the
same
end
time?
game. A D6 is fine. I come from
I guess you
3.5,
can.
where they had D4 hit points, and I think we should go back to that. I think they got it too easy as it is now. D6 hit dice. They should be squishy. Stay on the back line. Let your barbarian have some fun. This next question comes to us from Nui Ren. Among things I don't know, and I'm at this point kind of afraid to ask, don't be afraid. How many sets
be
of
afraid.
dice do D&D players have, and why? Do you have separate sets for different characters or for different quests? Or just because they look cool? They look cool! My friend, why not have as many as you can? I have an enormous
one thing at a time. One thing at a
pouch
time.
of dice. This is filled with dice. If I'm gonna throw an upcast cone of cold at my adventuring party, I need to have a ton of dice ready for that in the moment, ready to go. As you
I
put them
have
in longer, it actually is
lots of
worthwhile
dice,
to
and it's
invest
never
in more than
enough.
one set. In your
Because
first
I
set
like
of
collecting
you will
pretty
get
dice.
7 different dice typically. The first,
And I treat them like my
greatest of them
jewels,
all,
and I
is
like
the
to play with
D20.
them.
We say the letter D for dice, and then the number of sides on the die. So this is a D20 because it's a 20.
Oh no!
Then we come down to the D12. I'm not gonna lie, it doesn't get a lot of action. It's sort of for barbarian hit dice, great axes, and not too much else in common play. But we love the D12.
Oh,
We love
no.
the D12. It never stops rolling. These next two dice I'm gonna show together, D10 and another D10, but you'll notice that
Oh,
this
no.
one has two
Cane
digits
run.
in every place.
Cane
so
run.
you roll these together, and here in the tens digit, you produce a number. So that's an 8, and then in this other digit, you produce a 9. That's an...
Skincare can start in the laundry room. That's why I always recommend All Free Clear for sensitive
Uh-oh.
skin. It's free of dyes and perfume.
It's a key part of my self-care
Yeah,
routine.
that was
And it's
that was the
gentle on my
scariest
skin
one we could have
and
come
first,
across,
for an effective
actually.
clean
That's the
gentle on
worst.
skin, all you need is All
Stop.
Free Clear.
89. Coming down from the D10, you have the D8. This one sees a lot of play. You're talking long swords and battle axes. There's a lot of cool higher level spells.
Okay,
that
that's
do
the
D8
worst case
damage.
scenario when we're on the
That's
moon
a
here.
real fun
That
one.
one
There's
singular
for
curl.
folks that have been
Gray
scratching
curl
what
number
the
2.
hell is this guy talking about? The D6. You know this.
No, shoot!
right? You
No, that's
love
not what I wanted to do!
D6.
That's
This
not
is
what I
like
wanted to
the
do!
normal die. We use the normal die. We're talking about fireball damage, talking about wizard hit dice. I use the D6 for recharging breath weapons, which you always hate to see, but you have to do it. It scares your PCs. It's great. It's fun. You will have these somewhere in your house, probably in a normal board game. Maybe you're playing with like a new board game night with friends,
was
and
supposed
someone
to do
goes like, "Pass me
continue
the
instead of
D6."
load.
You're like, "Ah,
I lost the
fine.
progress we
You're
just
a
got.
secret TTRPG player. Normal people don't call it a D6. They just call it dice." And then the D4. This one always trips people up because it's got multiple numbers on each side because it lands with its point pointing up and you have to see which numeral is upright. The D4 is the bane of messy housekeepers everywhere because if you let dice fall on the floor and you're walking at night to get a glass of water, this bad boy's going right in your foot like a Lego. I have stepped on these so many times. And additionally, these are used for the smallest numbers possible. So like attacking with a dagger, like the damage of a small knife is a D4. Your D4 will always be the last dice on the table because they're hard to pick up. And so you're there looking foolish, grasping at your hands with these up-pointed dice. Frankly, annoying dice. I find the D4 annoying. I can say that. We have a long relationship. You're not going anywhere. Some of these dice are reliable and their personalities are good, and the D4 is not on that list. I'm sorry to say. Question here from @memeslich. Should Dungeon Masters stop fudging dice rolls in Dungeons & Dragons? Fudging a die roll is something that a Dungeon Master can do with the aid of this handy little screen. It's called a Dungeon Master screen. You put that up at the table, and all of a sudden, what am I up to back here? This screen enables you to do really fun stuff like this, where you go, okay, the monster's gonna attack. Oh no. If you were to see that I rolled a 2 and still hit you, that might prompt you to be like, we need to run away from this battle.
No, it's okay. I should get rid of that one.
There's a lot of stuff that is reasonable to stay hidden behind a DM screen. A DM hides
Soon
their
a
stat
dance.
block behind here. I usually make a little
Hey,
blue
actually,
index card with all
yeah.
the players' like game stats on it. But there is then a temptation for some DMs to fudge die rolls. Typically, this is done to spare the player characters from a terrible fate. You're attacking your PC, it's the last one standing, and they've got 10 hit points left.
Ooh,
and you roll that
Kyuraga, that's
monster attack
amazing.
roll. Ooh, it's a nat
Maybe I
20,
should
you're about
have
to do double damage,
Cecil
this is about to be the end of the
raise
campaign. Maybe they didn't roll a nat 20. Maybe
Rosa.
you could say that they rolled
Unless
something else.
Brina
That
can
temptation
use
is
a
there
dance to
for
raise her.
DMs
Because that is possible.
suddenly get a soft heart for their PCs. Ride the
Oh,
Dirt,
fudge.
also just some leftist. Hell yeah. What is a golden rule you try to follow
I
for
need a little bit more than a
hashtag
cure.
D&D or other
Well,
hashtag TTRPG for folks.
Run?
That's tabletop
Run?
role-playing game. The golden rule I try to follow is you're playing with your fellow players first and foremost. If you follow every rule and stay
Oh,
completely
goodness
in line
gracious.
with the module, the books
Oh,
are never
I'm
gonna
so
say thank
upset.
you. You're playing with other human
I'm so
beings
upset.
at
I
the table.
love the
Stay
progress we
tapped in
lost.
to what their experience is. Are they having fun? Are you all telling a story together? That is the measure of a great tabletop game.
I wasn't paying attention to what I was
PHX
doing. I
Mall
was kind of
asks,
in
what's
like
your favorite character race and class combo for
autopilot.
D&D? I tend to come back to Paladin and Wizard. I love Paladin's Oath, striving for honor and justice. We did a photo shoot a while back with a wonderful Andrew
I find you
Maxwell.
really
He as a
fun and
paladin. He
entertaining,
doesn't
and I
love a knight
appreciate
in
all
training
your
armor.
streams. You cheer me
Classic
up whenever
hero
bad moods are
archetype.
present, and I
you get
deeply
to
thank you for
smite.
that.
Who doesn't
Also,
love to
you're awesome
smite
and ballad
in
and
those
spectacular.
D8s? And I also like wizards because they're very magical, but they weren't
Thank
born
you.
that way. They had to work very hard to get magical, and I identify with that. But for the person asking this question of, is there a certain advantage. Typically, there are certain things that dovetail. Like if you're gonna play a barbarian, which is a strength-based
Sorry for the
class,
lost
there are
progress.
gonna be
It's my own
certain
fault.
ancestries that give
It's
you
my
a
own
bonus
fault.
to strength. In
I was
some
not paying
editions of the
attention.
game, there's also some fun stuff about playing a character that's a little bit more well-rounded. Every so often, it can be cool, even if you're playing a strength-based character, to go, oh, and because of this part of my background,
Oops.
I have a weird little cantrip.
But at
or magic
least
spell I can do.
that
Even though
changed
it might not
the
be optimal, that weird little power
that changed
doesn't
the
exactly
moon
fit
phase,
into your
which will make
build
it a little
may be the thing
easier.
that saves you and your friends
The new moon
from
phase
total
is
party
the
kill.
one that
At
is the most
Delusional,
difficult
do
because that's when the
what?
gray
How to
curls
handle
come out.
TPK? Do you full reset or just pick up at the last
Full-
save
the-
spot?
the-
Any
the-
other
it was a
things you
full
like to do
moon
after a party wipe?
that we
Handling a
were,
TPK for folks at home is a total party kill. It is when
It was a full
every
moon that we
member
got
of
those
the
levels on
adventure
because
party
and the
dies
full
all
moon
at once.
has the
I think
easier
sometimes
monsters
the
to deal
best way
with.
to handle a
But you know,
TPK
we have
is
to learn how to deal with the
If
other
you're
monsters at any
heading
other moon
towards a
phase. So
battle that is absolutely punishing and stands a chance of really wiping out everybody in the party. Say it.
what?
Say it above the table and say it. in
Oh
game.
no!
Have a moment where you check in with your players and go, hey, no shame in running. This has a chance of killing everybody in the party. Take your time. You approach the dungeon. Drums beat in the dark. Fires flicker from torchlight. The smell of death is everywhere. Taking the time to add some gravitas can sometimes wake your players up and go, oh, our buddy is suddenly being very dramatic and serious. I think we might be in trouble. If you do all that due diligence and say, hey, you can make a brave last stand here, you all may die.
It's like
when
Brennan is
they
talking to you
do,
directly. Yeah, he
they
is.
had some agency. The thing that makes a TPK really unbearable is when players feel like it happened for no reason. At sessions,
I mean, actually, I'm not even sure what he's saying. I'm not paying attention. I'm just trying to not die
make
here.
their characters isolated from one another. Where do people congregate? In a medieval setting, in a public house, in a place of drink and libation.
Holy
and revel.
moly.
I would say probably there's a deeper answer
Oh, he
here,
can't do his
but I
magic,
haven't
that's
seen anything
right.
written about this, but I would hazard a guess that it is in maybe unconscious homage to the end of the Prancing Pony in Bree, where Strider first meets the
He's
hobbits
talking about
in Lord of the
TPK?
Rings, which is
It's
a
about to
similar
happen right
text
now.
that serves as the basis
Run,
for a lot of the
Rydia,
lore of
run!
Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
This next question comes to us from
Okay,
Rotten
continue.
Work. Does anyone have any
Continue.
tips
That's
for a
what we need.
first-time DM?
Goodness
I'm having my
gracious.
first session 0 for a campaign tomorrow, and I am nervous. LOL.
There have been students from various schools playing in the golf.
Oh my gosh. I am so upset. I lost that progress.
First of all, laughter will help, so I'm glad that you're lolling. Second of all,
I wish
you're
I
in
was
session
lolling.
0? My friend, you're way ahead of the curve. Session 0, for those who don't know, is a pre-campaign session where DMs will line up. Sometimes people will do
Not
character creation there.
again.
Sometimes that happens beforehand, and Session 0 is just to line up what the adventure's gonna be about, any rules of engagement. So the fact that you have got your situation buttoned up enough that you're doing a Session 0, you're off to a great start. Second of all, tips.
No effect!
What's the nugget, Brennan? What's the secret little sauce? There's not one. You gotta slug it out like the rest of us. You gotta get your hands dirty. You gotta jump in
I hate this.
first and run the game. Is your first session gonna be clean? Are you gonna remember every rule? Are you gonna nail every NPC? Maybe yes, maybe no, but the point is this. Your first session is the learning experience. You're gonna jump in and you're gonna learn so
Rosa.
much more in that first session than any
Run.
internet
Run.
dungeon master could tell you. That being
Oh
said,
man.
the answers lie in your players.
Why is this
Just listen
panther?
to them, tap into
It's just
what
one of
is
the
bringing
hardest
them
monsters
joy,
in this
will
area.
Do wonders, my friend.
And
Root
we're
for it. This
a
one's
little
from
under leveled,
Gary,
which is why we're here.
268-174-38. 26 million and some odd Garys before this one. What in the world is a critical roll? Don't you mean a nat 20?
Oh
You're
my
thinking of a
gosh,
critical
are you kidding me?
hit. A nat 20 is the highest possible roll on a 20-sided die. When you get that nat 20 roll, on an attack roll, it's an automatic hit and it deals double damage. Thrilling. Most DMs, and I would say the fun ones, not to put myself on one side of the fence, will homebrew that a nat 20 is also an automatic success on a skill check. Now, there's
Rosa,
still
why
certain
can't you
things in
cast?
Game balance, the
My
game
goodness.
rules as written does not say that a nat 1 is an automatic failure or a nat 20 is an automatic success. But I am part of a camp of dungeon masters that believe if the possibility for success
I
or
just
failure
got
does
him
not
up.
exist on a given roll,
Run.
why are you asking for it in the first place? Just say it's impossible. If you're gonna ask someone to roll a
Rena,
die
run!
and they roll
Rena,
a nat
run!
20 and they still don't succeed, it doesn't feel very good. And we're here to feel good. This next question is from Andy Doodle 56. Question for hashtag Dungeon
Escape.
Masters. If D&D
I lost money,
is
but that's okay.
improv, in parentheses, yes, and
Go back to the
with
ship.
dice,
Go back to the
what
ship.
do you do when the dice really don't want to tell the same story that you do?
Goodness
There's a great
gracious.
expression, which is that the dice tell the story.
I'm
You're
gonna see if
taking a
there's,
D20 and rolling it. It's the most climactic roll of the campaign.
Armor that will
Attack? You got an 11. I needed
protect
to do 19
against
or higher. I
paralysis,
missed my
because
opportunity.
that's
Perhaps I
really
will be
messing
struck
me
down
up.
the mountainside here. Your job as a dungeon master is to immediately start to think about what the story beat is that accompanies failure. Failure is not anathema to storytelling. Failure is a key and critical component of storytelling. Downbeats, moments of ruin and wrath, these are what drive heroes on to greater and greater ends. The reason we play with these
Where's
dice
my sushi?
is so that
It
we
says
can
soon.
surrender
Oh
control.
no, that's
Maybe
the
this
new
isn't the
moon.
big heroic victory you
the
thought it
new
was.
moon.
Maybe this is actually a
Waning
setback.
Moon's
At
wait,
Wild
Waning
Magic
Moon
Surge,
is not great
what's your
either. We
favorite
learned.
D&D 5e spell? Oh man, is it Shield? I love Shield. It's just really fun. Reaction +5 to your armor class. I think favorite D&D 5e spell. Fireball, fly.
Excuse me.
I will say this: third level.
Which
is the best spell.
which class
All
has
the most fun
shield?
spells
Is
are
it
third
Paladin?
level spells. At Lee, 51,765,627.
I've only ever, like,
I want to learn to play
rolled as a
Dungeons and Dragons.
cleric.
I find people willing to play with a newbie. Well, yeah, I love playing with newbies. Playing
So
with
far.
newbies is the best. But you are right. It is hard to find. A
I
group
also
to play with.
started
I think the best
making,
thing to
like,
do,
a
honestly,
character
is
that was,
if you have
spellcasters?
people you're
Okay.
close with, you have a group
I
of
would
friends,
love to
all
play a
learn the game
druid.
Together. It doesn't matter if you're stumbling through it. It doesn't matter if it feels arcane or Byzantine or it's hard to get through. The important thing is you're spending time with people you care about and you love. If the crew around you, if your
Wizards,
friends
sorcerers, and warlocks,
network
right.
aren't as interested in tabletop games as you
Protects
are,
against
frequenting
curse,
game nights at
protects
your
against
local game
blind.
store, have game nights where you can come and meet people and join a table. And there's also
Anything that-
services online
Poison,
to find physical but also
attacks,
digital play groups.
lightning,
So start playing
flan.
games as a company that serves as a sort of matchmaker to not only hook
Reduces
people up with other people to
anti-cost,
play with, but
increases
also
item drop
dungeon
rate.
masters. Matching services for dungeon masters
Oh, we already have
that
that.
charge for their services. There's free dungeon masters. There's free groups that get together there.
Those are
All
shields
these things
now.
are available.
Dang it, there's
for
nothing that
you at
protects
your
against
disposal. So there's
paralysis.
a range
At least
of
from this,
options. Yes,
Loporrit.
it is a challenge, but there are ways to do it. Here's one from Beck
There are
Schwartz
ways
on
to
Blue
steal
Sky.
spells from other
Thanks,
classes,
Bex.
usually from
I'm
a feat at
hero
level
Brendan
4.
Lee Mulligan. How does
Like,
you prep for an adventure in someone else's
cross-classing, or-
campaign, such as Exandria and Critical Role's Calamity, differ from preparation for the Worlds Beyond Number that you are building? Thank you for the question, Bex. I deeply appreciate it. Shout out to Worlds Beyond Number, the podcast that I do with Bria Iyengar, Eric Ishii, and Lou Wilson, edited by Taylor Moore. I was fortunate enough to get invited to come and run a series in Exandria for Critical Role as a part of their Exandria Unlimited series. Basically, whenever they need someone to crash a flying city somewhere in the history of Exandria, Matt calls me up. They light the little bat signal, and I come in and make everybody sad. At the core of your question is, how do you create your own world from scratch versus how do you create a meaningful story in a world created by someone else? Creating the homebrew world of Umora from scratch for this epic fantasy podcast to stepping into
Sage, you're a
Exandria,
druid, you
the
can't have
incredible
shield, but at
world
level 4 you can
Matt
choose to get an
Mercer
ability
and
score
Critical
or a
Role that has
feat.
been
Okay,
established
right.
over now 3 full
We gained a
campaigns
level back for
adapted
Brina.
into the Legend of Kosmika animated shows. Pick your poison, right? A lot of DMs rely on pre-published modules. Exandria has incredible source books.
There are specific
that
feats
give
to
the
choose
DM the
spells from a
tools
different
to
class.
jump
Right,
into
okay,
an
yeah.
established and exhaustively beautiful and rich fantasy world to just start telling your story in it. Other DMs actually sort of tend towards wanting to create from homebrew themselves, wanting to make their own setting and to be sort of the ultimate authority on where that world was and what was going to be going on in it. The prep is very different, and they're both
I'm
wonderful.
gonna save when I
Short
get up
answer
there.
is, you got to do a lot more.
I need
reading for
I
this.
need to
And in
make a
this
habit
one,
of
you got
that.
to do a lot more writing. There's something really beautiful and delightful about writing fiction in someone else's setting. Anyone now who's writing a Star Wars show,
Every
is
time
someone
there's a
who grew
level
up
up,
probably loving Star
I need to do
Wars. So
that.
there's an amazing focus on coming to something that you are a fan of and getting to light a little candle in that world. At Flora Rune, a question for D&D and TTRPG friends. What is your favorite magical item? The immovable rod! Small metal wand that has a button on it, and when you click it, it cannot be moved in space. That might sound trivial. The amount of shenanigans people get up to clicking it to fly, like jumping up like an acrobat. Someone was on an airship being chased by another airship, leaned off the back, clicked it, and left it in the air. And then you have to decide what happens when an airship collides with a ruler-sized bar of metal that cannot be moved no matter what. Chaos, the immovable rod. This next one's from Brycing Wolf on Reddit. What common D&D related behavior or quirk really grinds your gears? Mine is when people call the fighter class the warrior or call the wizard the mage. Not even sure why, but it makes me hate you a little. Brycing Wolf, do not give in to hate. They know not what they...
Uh-oh. Oh, Sushi's here. Sushi's here. Okay.
I think for me,
I'll be back.
Probably the biggest pet peeve has to do with a player making a choice as a character that really grinds the adventure to a halt. I think sometimes people will hide behind the sort of lens of it's what my character would do and will do things that are a little bit antisocial at the table. And ultimately, there's not that much a dungeon master can do if you decide that your character wouldn't go on an adventure. If a DM comes out and says, your village is in danger. Your loved ones are in jeopardy. The fate of the world hangs in the balance and you alone hold the sword of destiny. And you go, I run. I'm getting out of Dodge. Good luck. Well, that's kind of the story over. Actually, I am incorrect. What's your favorite weird niche bit of lore that isn't fully developed? D&D created a cosmology for the afterlife called Planescape. And it made it really, really weird because they never kind of thought you were going to go there. And then they built an edition that was actually set there. An infinite tower arises and ends in a torus of stone, like a big stone donut. On the inside rim of that donut is the city of Sigil, and within Sigil there is a lady of pain who has forbade all gods from entering that city. And her servants are known as the Dabus. Tony DiTerlizzi, the original illustrator for them, I always think of them as big, tall, white-haired Who's from Whoville. And they speak through emoji. They make little weird hieroglyphs out of light over their heads that only the Dabus can read. I think about them every day. What a crazy bit of lore. At Aiden Lair says, why did people think playing D&D was satanic? You're literally fighting Hellspawn half the time. That's a great question, Aiden. There's sort of two answers to this. One is D&D, by involving elements of folklore and mythology, had elements of things adjacent to the occult. There's a deeper answer, which is that back in the 1980s, it was like evangelical moral panic about that. But really, the evangelical right in this country needs to manufacture outrage to hold on to its voting bloc. So that's your real answer. It was arbitrary, as the targets of their outrage always are. Fight the power. Are you going to include that? This next question comes to us from Shuffleopagus. I wonder how much prep a DM like hashtag Brennan Lee Mulligan does. Like, what do his notes look like? My notes are garbage. I have terrible notes. My 14-year home game that I ran, the system I had for how to manage the lore was at the end of 14 years, 412-page, indecipherable Google Doc. Paragraphs of lore interspersed with random initiative counts, unlabeled as to what battle they referenced. Terrible stuff. So, if there's any part of you that doubts your abilities as a GM based on having seen a GM out there in the world with like an incredible digital spreadsheet, or I know DMs whose prep work is flawless. Matt Mercer rolls up to the table with stapled sheets of paper with all of the lore of the setting. And I got like a bullet point list on a Google Doc and a wish and a prayer. And that's about it. I rely a lot on improvisation. That stresses some DMs out. Other people rely a lot on preparation. That stresses other DMs out. Find your style that's right for you. It brings the most joy to your players and your table. This one's from @YumDM. How many different editions of D&D do you actively play? I play most actively 5e. Up until last year, I was also playing 3.5 extremely actively. There are many editions of the game. I came into the game playing 2nd edition. You want to talk about crunch? Come talk to me about Thaco, baby, to hit armor class 0. Imagine a 10-year-old boy with 2 sliding sheets of graph paper to align a set of negative integers with the value of a die roll. That required some math. Negative numbers are good, tough. However, there are also many other games aside from D&D that I play. Other big ones like Vampire the Masquerade, Call of Cthulhu, Blades in the Dark. My friend Jay Dragon does Wander Home and Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast. There's great indie games out there for anyone who is like, oh, I've had a taste of heroic fantasy and playing Dungeons & Dragons, but I want a sci-fi experience, or I want a more poetic experience, or an even crunchier experience. The world of tabletop role-playing games awaits you. This next one comes to us from @Warforged Dice. D&D players, how do we feel about the new D&D rules / mechanics? Hey, I hear ya. I know that we loved so much of the old way the game was played. The changes to Counterspell and to Divine Smite, ask yourself this. If you were making a wizard or a paladin, were you allowed to do anything other than those abilities? No, you were not. Counterspell needed to be altered a little bit. Divine Smite needed to be altered a little bit. Every damage dealing build that was a super damage dealer had to involve Divine Smite. It was mandatory. Counterspell, mandatory. And anytime an ability in a game is mandatory, you have to ask yourself if it's a little bit out of balance. And the druids, letting them talk in wild shape? Yes, let them talk. I always want them to be able to talk in wild shape. That's a rule that just helps DMs out. When is it ever helpful for someone to not be able to speak? It's never helpful. Let the druids talk. I want that dog to talk. @NotCavid. Okay, but what if I said I wanted to play a Wild West setting D&D campaign? What then? We've played in many different kinds of settings and genres all across the spectrum. We have Fantasy High, where we play D&D in a high school for fantasy heroes. We play The Unsleeping City. At Madison Square Garden is a live show. We're playing D&D at the Garden in New York City because The Unsleeping City is set in a magical version of New York City. We even played a Starstruck Odyssey set in the sci-fi setting of Anarch era, written by noted comics author Elaine Lee, also my mom, if you can believe that. I adapted my mom's comic book series into a D&D campaign. There's a lot of people who enjoy home brewing and stretching the creative boundaries, chop shopping or jury rigging what they want their game to be about. Everyone has a different play style, and all are valid and good. @Dickie Minaj. So there's a Dungeons & Drag Queen show, and I'm just finding out about this? Yes, you can come over to dropout.tv, where we play a miniseries called Dungeons & Drag Queens.
Say hi, questing queens.
Hi, questing queens.
With some of the best drag performers in the world, Bob the Drag Queen, Alaska Thunder, Juju B, and Monet Exchange, who are so wonderful and incredible players and had the bravery and the chutzpah to sit down and play D&D for the first time on camera with me. They were phenomenal. The number one thing that you want to look for in a new player is how much they care and how invested they are. And all of them went into it with their full heart and were just naturals right away. Took to the game so effortlessly, it was a joy and a privilege to behold. The next one comes to us from Bug Hop D. My son just asked a D&D question I don't know how to answer. What does a mimic look like when it's not mimicking? In their natural state, mimics appear as amorphous shapes with speckled gray skin, similar in appearance to granite. But since they are such shape-changing extraordinaires, you'll rarely encounter one in its regular form. Mimics are shape changers, much like doppelgangers. We had a mimic in our high school for heroes setting, Fantasy High, that looked like a standard examination room desk. I like to imagine that they have a penchant for disguising themselves exclusively as furniture. So, those are all our questions for today. I'm wishing all the best to you and your table. May all your hits be crits, and I hope you learned a lot here about the wonderful world of tabletop role-playing games. From here at D&D Support, Brandon Lee Mulligan, signing off.
I learned a lot. No, I
The
didn't.
one and only Botox Cosmetic, the only product.
Because I wasn't able to pay attention. Okay, let me find the guide. Crap. Oopsies. I'm in caps. Crap. Guide to D&D. Oh yeah, there's a playlist. For every, I've watched some of these. I don't remember if I've watched all of them. Is the sushi safe? Yes. If I was able to retrieve it, no problem, if that's what you mean. Are these in... Okay, so oldest at the top. Okay, great.
It's too cold outside. What shadowy hints of my easy-to-miss social life is dying, and I also want to argue about how pop culture characters fit into alignment charts. So it's time to make like a bunch of famous voice actors and Dungeons & Dragons. Odds are plenty of you dork bags have heard of the hobby, but have as little understanding about how it works as anyone over 60 has about being content with living as a single childless adult who doesn't care about where they live so long as it's a roof over their head and the neighbors don't shout out racial slurs. Unless it's at half-elves, the filthy, knife-eared mongrel mutts. So print out some character sheets, go shopping for some loaded dice, pack some expired snacks, call up all those friends you can only tolerate, and put on your favorite wizarding hat. It's time to do some motherfucking role-playing. Welcome to A Crap Guide to D&D. Do you like hitting things? What am I saying? Of course you do. Everybody does. I most certainly do. All the time. Like now. And hitting things is the best thing about D&D. You can hit literally anything you want. Better yet, you can hit it with a big fuck-off axe while flying into a bloodthirsty rage so potent you could be forgiven for mistaking it for some kind of super rabies. The Barbarian is the best class for hitting everything and everyone hard enough they explode into a huge puff of confetti or a shower of blood and organs. What's the difference? They're pretty much the same thing. You get a D12 for your hit die, one of the only times you'll ever use a D12. But it does mean you'll be soaking up hits better than my pillow soaks up tears after I take a look in the mirror for a few seconds. You start with just about every important combat proficiency and any weapon of your choice. And if you're taking recommendations, I highly suggest going for the dual-wield chainsaw shotgun laser earrings with detachable missile launchers and drink dispensers. Ooh, and they have built-in cup holders.
Oh, nice.
No tool proficiencies, but who cares? Nobody uses tools anyway. You pick them to add to your character for backstory purposes and then forget they exist because you only ever roll for skill checks anyway, you lazy, thoughtless gobblebright. Yes, I just made that up, and it's what you are, you stinky Feigl bitch. In fact, who even needs armor? Your pure, unadulterated chutzpah will block enemy blows better than even the shiniest of chainmail bikinis. Better yet, you have spider sense, which assists in you avoiding traps, spells, obligatory social events, and laundry. And of course, the signature trait of the barbar is being able to enter a ferocious frenzy of force that foes will fear for all their fans. During your rage, you may be easier to hit, but at the game that you are better at hitting everything else. And not just that, your muscles grow to the size of crag-faced Garmoofis.
That's a made-up word.
I don't care that the things I'm using for analogies aren't real. Intelligence is a dump stat anyway. That's why mine is the number that comes after 3. And now you know how to play Barbarian. You're welcome.
You're welcome. What kind of sushi did I get?
Whack. Close quarters combatants.
I got
immobile tanks.
a roll
whack.
that has crab and eel,
D&D,
and then a roll that has albacore.
But that was only because I hadn't figured out that there's only one way to play it right. With a sword in one hand and a harp in the other, shouting my greatness from the rooftops, laying bitches and slaying witches. Or is it laying witches and slaying bitches? I can't quite remember. I was too busy giving the tavern owner a reason to stay in business. Welcome to A Crap Guide to D&D. Jack of all trades, master of none is still better than someone who only has one gimmick and has to hide for the rest of the fight because they've run out of class features and spell slots. If the sword and shield were an RPG class, it would be the bard, one that's good at doing everything and doing everyone. You can cast spells, learn tons of skills, support allies, harm enemies, harm allies, support enemies, woo crowds, boo crowds, and most importantly, lay dragons.
Oh, I see. That's how that works.
Archetypes allow you to fill literally any
you have a
role,
chance
so
to hit the weak point, and you do a lot of damage.
Swords, need a tank, College of Valor. Want to make rogues useless, College of Whispers. Need to get good at the game, College of Sit Down, Shut Up, and Listen. Your most important feature, Bardic Inspiration, is like the little girl Wolverine version of the Big Daddy Logan, and is absolutely game-breaking. By being a radiant concentration of pure awesomeness, you can allow anyone else an additional die to roll and add to almost anything. Think that weak-ass wizard won't be able to make the con save against that poison attack? Inspire! The fighter needs to land the killing blow on an enemy with a high armor class. Inspire! Your wingman just told you about a hot piece of sliz that walked into a high-class tavern and that he needs you to hype him up to be able to talk his way in and maybe nab a few extras on the way out for you? You best bet your ass that homie's gonna be inspired! In fact, screw your wingman, you can do it yourself. Jack of all trades and expertise means whatever you're bad at, you're suddenly good at. And whatever you're good at, you're suddenly unbelievably amazing at. Nothing can stop you, well, maybe except a pretty face. By playing D&D, you automatically sign an unwritten contract that forces you to write your character to fall under the purest stereotype of whatever class you pick. Everybody knows you have to follow that contract or else Matt Mercer will sneak into your house and throw foam noodles at you from the corner of your living room. All wizards are smartass eggheads, all rogues are kleptomaniacs, and all bards are lust-compelled sex deviants. It's just the rules, I don't make them. And of course, the main gimmick of the bard is that it's artistically expressive in some way. People usually think this means musician. That's because their brain are like this, while my brain are like this. They can sing, dance, paint, prance, make a pretty dirt drawing with a lance. Plenty of ways to further enhance the battlefield if given the right chance. Now you know how to play bard, you're welcome.
I wish I could play bard because I like their abilities, but I have no charisma whatsoever.
Now this may sound rather odd, but sometimes the best in the squad is the one with the cross who can smite like a boss by harnessing the bitch slap of God. With a mace that even ogres will flee, you'll cast and crush things with glee. Some think they're not strong and those people are wrong. Welcome to A Crap Guide to D&D. The support is someone everyone wants on their team, but nobody wants to be. Lucky for you, the cleric is like a support that decided to buy a taser after being too fed up with being told to heal the barbarian who ran into a 1v20 encounter. Clerics are the religious fandoms in the D&D world.
No, I would cause
they've turned their fangirling power into something that can
the game
pack
to
a
slow
punch,
down,
having the
come to
same
a
armor
halt, and it would be
proficiencies as
very
a fighter
boring.
and the self-sustaining capabilities of a paladin that's been juicing with unicorn hooves and dragonborn acid. They have so many teeth-grindingly infuriating spells at their disposal. On top of all that dungeon masters all over the world universally agree to ban clerics from the game so as to not make encounters absolute nightmares to give proper challenge without throwing approximately 20 black dragons at one cleric alone to keep it balanced. Spells like Flash Gordon, Buddy Cop Weapon, and Does My Hand Smell Bad to You are so stupidly strong at such a low level it's easy to forget why so many uncultured swine consider the cleric a designated healer. Anyone who does has either never played the class or considered the sword and shield a viable weapon in Monster Hunter. Wait, unlike most other classes, you pick your archetype at first level, and you have oodles, canoodles, and toaster strudels to choose from. To summarize, you have heel bitch, nerd, sunburn, and my axe, nobody dies, nobody cares, and a couple of more that I'm too lazy to mention. Seriously, with how versatile and independently strong you can build a cleric, you can make up an entire party full of purely priests, call it the Amen, and bust down Tiamat's door demanding her lunch money. And she would just build her own toilet to give herself swirlies so she wouldn't have to endure the kind of bullying you're about to give her. Channel Divinity gives you special limited use effects depending on your domain, and can be as dumb as Turn Undead, where the power of the gods can make a zombie run away from you like it's regained its ability to smell and realizes you've been sleeping with your Jesus blanket that you haven't washed in months. Or as useful as Guiding Strike, where you can choose to add 10 billion points to your attack roll so you'll be able to swat one fly with another fly's deuce being whipped around on a string like a yo-yo strung around your pinky toe while blindfolded. The only downside is that you get a pitiful amount of uses like a gym 2 weeks after New Year's. And finally, the most notable trait of the cleric is divine intervention.
Yeah, I haven't had
like a girl all year praying happy thoughts and burning that dank holy kush. If you wish upon a star, the clouds in the heavens will part and the literal gods will stop playing their game of Jenga to fix whatever dumb problems you and your party have gotten into, and then avoid you for 7 days, debating whether or not to write you a holy restraining order after seeing you pissed your pants fangirling over your religious senpai noticing you. And now you know how to play cleric. Amen.
Amen.
I don't understand tree huggers. What has the environment ever done for us? It's not like it provides oxygen, resources for tools, housing, clothes, food, and technology or anything important like that. And it's definitely not like it's home to various species of plants and animals required to keep the ecosystem alive to continue to feed mankind's insatiable appetite to destroy, consume, and rebuild in his own image, ultimately resulting in the annihilation of the very world that brought him into existence. Nah, fuck all that. The environment clearly exists for us to skin innocent animals that are minding their own business so we can wear them as high fashion. I mean, just look at bears. All they do is steal my chips and shit in my backyard. Well, guess what, Yogi? It's payback time. And what better way to give it than undercover as one of their own? They'll never see it coming. Welcome to a crap guide to D&D.
Never see it coming.
The druid is what happens when a ranger decides to fully commit to being a furry/hippie instead of just half-assing it because they're only trying to impress that sexy dryad they met in the forest that one time. They're primarily a casting class, but unlike clerics with their holy senpai, warlocks with their sugar daddies, bards with their awesomeness, or sorcerers with their rich magical parents' inheritance, druid's magic comes from Mother Nature, and from first-hand experience I can tell you now she's an absolute bitch. Shut up, bitch. At second level, you can fulfill every furry's dream and transform into an animal, but not just any old lameo neon-colored oversaturated mess like Arjun Darksnout the rainbow dog with an indie band t-shirt over there. No, I mean cool animals like my original character, Grabblejean, the nocturnal giant toad. Don't steal! Your archetype will be based around whether you want to be part of the forces of nature or if you want it to work for you. To list them off, land for different flavors of spells, moon for when you want to take your persona to the next level, dreams for if you secretly want
oh my gosh, it worked! Stop works!
King of the Wigglers, spores for if you want to reenact The Last of Us, and Twilight for that sweet, sweet
oh my god!
All the classes, your features improve with your level. Where druids
I should have raised
related features mean that the beasts you summon or their fursuits up don't necessarily get stronger, but rather they're thrown into the garbage and replaced by things with increasingly more fleas. Moreover, they gain additional features a regular animal couldn't imagine if it was high on devil weed, which gets fucking terrifying at later levels. Imagine this scenario. You're walking in the woods, there's no one around, and your phone is dead. Suddenly, spiky thorns sprout out around you, making movement painful. An adorable bunny rabbit sitting in front of you, seemingly harmless, suddenly starts shooting giant bees out of its eyeballs and turning the tree branches around you into black mambas. Design an encounter for that, Dungeon Master. And now you know how to play druid. You're welcome.
Oh, that did nothing.
Fighter-Man, Fighter-Man. Overall, he's fairly bland. Hit some stuff, hit some more. Outside combat, it's quite a bore. Look out, he is a Fighter-Man. RPG. I wonder what it does. It's a goddamn mystery. Who knows? I'll say it because nobody else will. If you pick fighter, odds are you're also likely to pick human.
He was like walking away as he said that. Oh my gosh, we did it, guys. Ah, they learned it. They leveled up.
Incapable of choosing something unique even when they're given options like playing as a kobold paladin who prays to asteroids just before they crush an unfortunate man's cabbage cart. Just look at me, for example, artistic phenomenon and originator of the satirical talk fast genre of videos. What do you mean I'm not the first one to come up with the idea? I don't need these lies coming out of you. Everything I make is completely original and everybody knows it. Come on, Master Chief, let's get the fuck out of here. Fighters are the purest essence of the combat side of D&D, all about hitting things hard and fast, getting into the thick of the fight, and hey, you get out of here, we're not talking about you. They're all focused around rolling more dice than a Limp Bizkit song, as well as being straight up easy baby mode because you get to start using any weapon you want, heavy armor, some ranged options, a free cheesecake, and a complimentary belly rub just for picking the class. Seriously, everything about it is geared towards being so noob-friendly, even a Monster Hunter Longsword player will be laughing at you. If you feel so inclined during combat, you can heal yourself, attack twice, and take a second action to attack twice again, all in the same turn. And that's at 5th level. Not to mention you getting more ability score increases than any other class means that if you go a turn without hitting at least something, then you must have made some kind of D&D sin that angered Gary Gygax, like getting weighted dice or putting milk in before your cereal. Fighter flavors allow you to pick how you want to be hitting the bad guys, like being a magic bitch that can actually take a hit, or ride a bitch while you cut down a fool, or go all out sensei mode and just decide you want advantage for every attack this turn, so you're going to absolutely destroy a bitch. But odds are, knowing most fighters out there, champion is the best bet because it's basic. Yo, we heard you like fighter, so we put more fighter in your fighter. Just be sure to make your character a rough and grizzle-faced middle-aged straight white man with a two-headed sword and a mysterious and/or tragic and/or vengeful backstory just to fit the bill. Don't want to get too creative now, do we? And now you know how to play fighter, you're welcome. Hammer, bow, sword, and shield. There's no limit what you can wield. Plenty fights you have fought. Demon Lord's just another thought. This class, great for a newbie's first time. Plenty of damage to
Wait, what?
shine. Here comes
Is one of them not wearing uh-oh. One of them is not wearing the chakra band and level band. Oh, it's Rydia. Monk?
Because,
Is this
bitch,
Monk?
You were
Yeah.
taking too long. Welcome to a crap guide to D&D.
Wait. Ah. No, I need to swap out Rydia as well.
Fighting is like a science and can be used for either side of the moral spectrum. It can be used for evil, like punctuating arguments, expressing a salty loss, and beating up nerds, or it can be used for good, like self-defense, artistic expression, and beating up nerds. And monks are those who have trained heavily in the nerd beating up science of mixed martial arts, foregoing any sort of traditional filthy weapon proficiencies and instead opting for wanting to punch, bam, boom, slam, kick, punch stuff. You start with no armor because, like a barbarian, you have the ability to deflect and dodge attacks with the power of your unconstrained birthday suit. But unlike barbarian, you don't have to rely on the pathetic material world to explodify goblins. You have your knuckles. Martial arts training means you can serve up extra punchables for the bad guys as a bonus action, so no matter how you're doing this, Mama said, you'll be dishing out more pain-induced fistings than two lesbians who consider watching porn as a reasonable substitute for sex ed. But it's not all coochie destruction. The monk is a slippery piece of work who's really good at avoiding any oncoming fistings, like a millennial trying to get their life together avoids self-care by catching them if they're a fist projectile or dodging out of the way if it's an area of fists. As you grow stronger, you can translate a fist if it's punching in a different language and avoid any infections if the fister forgot to take a shower that night. As a monk, your shtick is the key feature, but since I can't come up with any way to make this section much funnier, and also because key translates to poop in Thai, that's how I'm going to refer to it from now on. You gain more and more poop as you level up, and you can spend your poopy points on various skills to do all sorts of things, like stun people, reroll saves, mask yourself and turn invisible, and any other number of crazy things based on which anime you want to imitate. I would recommend Kensei so you could use the dual-wield chainsaw shotgun laser earrings if it weren't for the fact that every other archetype was just cooler in every way, wearing fancy outfits and taking the time to actually learn how to fist properly. Oh man, what a tough decision. Do I want to use a pokey stick or do I want to fire Hadoukens and Kamehameha blasts? What an enticing decision. I'm really gonna have to think about it.
Kamehamehas.
Don't stop, we're in luck now.
And now you know how to play monk. You're welcome.
I took a step. Oh no! Good thing I saved.
Boy, I love the smell of justice in the morning. There's nothing more satisfying than knowing the good name of Sword and Shield has traveled so far and wide that not even the Pokemon games are free from their incredible, awesome influence. And it's about time, too. You think I created this series to entertain and inform ignorant whelps of great hobbies their miserable lives are missing out on? Fuck no, it was to enforce the mighty name of the one true weapon pairing that triumphs all others. And if anyone were to step out of line, I'd bring down the wrath of which tear-ass children tell their parents to scare them before bedtime, and then collect the aftermath of the pants they all shit because it makes for great fertilizer. Welcome to a crap guide to D&D. Do you want to tank? Do you want to fight? Do you want a class that'll instill fright? Take up some plate and keep the goblins in sight, because you want to make sure they eat this paladin smite! The paladin is the first on a short list of hybrid style classes, stealing a mix of features from both the fighter and the cleric, meaning it's better at physically painting the walls with blood than a cleric, but more gooder at grammar and spelling than a fighter. But it's also one of the few classes where role-playing becomes somewhat important. What? Role-playing in my role-playing game? They really should have put some kind of warning label somewhere. I'm not submitting to this shit. If I wanted to follow some sort of code, I'd become a pirate so that I could at least plunder some booty while I'm at it. Otherwise, fuck you gods. If you want me to play your game of ethics, you can kiss my shiny plate mail. Alright, fine, just follow the code and don't do anything stupid that'll cause you to lose your paladin privileges, like a spoiled rich kid who's upset that he doesn't get a fourth Maserati to crash. Like the other all-up-in-your-grill-style physical fighting classes, you gain proficiency with every goddamn combat-oriented item in the universe. And yes, that does technically mean that you can optimally play a paladin without a shield and not have to worry about being a less effective contribution to your party, but if you do that, I'm telling you now that you're wrong, and I hate you, and you're a big, smelly duty head. As a resident big fuck-off bringer of divine justice, your job is to harness the power of holiness, or whatever other wacky power, depending on what oath you pick, to have everything else die while they bounce off of your full frontal crusade like a turd in the wind. That's true for just about every combat-focused class, but the paladin is especially good at it. What with having the aforementioned fighter-cleric combo skill set, you get multiple attacks, channel divinity, a free vaccination, casting abilities, more auras than that one silly anime that nobody likes, which means you'll be so jacked that your mere presence will muscleify any nearby allies so that they look like a typical character from said silly anime that nobody likes. And lay on hands, a pool of health you can use to heal yourself or give a single hit point to your ally, because that's all they deserve for not letting the rogue check the obviously booby-trapped room first. But we all know the real reason anyone picks paladin, and that's to never cast any actual spells, but instead use your spell slots to imbue your weapon with various flavors of smite. Because what good is striking down the heretics and heathens of the realm if it's not in the elemental attacking equivalent of your god sports team colors? You can smite with fire, laser pointers, brain freezes.
It's very nice to know that it works.
Cheese for everyone!
Sorry, I meant force. Force is what it says. What is this, Stargate? And now you know how to play... Wait a minute, what the hell is that noise?
It's odd, it's odd. It's just
play a fighter with a bow, it's way better.
The kind of, like, each Final Fantasy has, like,
Alright, fine, I'll talk about the class.
Like,
Rangers,
the flavor of the job or class is a little different in every Final Fantasy.
Depending on which one looks
probably the best way to
Hell, it
explain
even
it.
steals a few things from Rogue because it's so indecisive. And despite the name Ranger, you're not actually restricted to use any sort of ranged weapon in order to be effective. As far as combat goes, you get the usual fighter but not really fighter set of features. Fighting
Ranger
style,
gets
all
no
weapons,
love.
extra attack, spell casting, D10, hit die, hey Macarena. From Rogues, it steals the ability to channel your inner chameleon and blend into the environment. Except instead of hiding in the shadows and watching where you step, it's more like putting on makeup, so you need to take some time, have a good look in the mirror, maybe look up some tutorials while you're at it, then start over when you realize you were using the wrong shade of foundation.
For a second,
From
there's
Karun,
like lag,
it steals some of that being one with nature flavor it's got going on, and a whole lot of spells, but not without a few exclusive spells of its own, like having a target explode a bunch of thorns when hit with a ranged attack, plant arrows in the ground and turn them into proximity-based fireworks, except the gunpowder is magic and the lights are bits of enemy brains, and single-handedly the objectively best ranger spell, Swift Quiver. Not for the unlimited ammo, that's dumb, nobody keeps track of their arrows anyway, but because it turns your ranged weapon into a rapid-fire machine gun.
But Joseph, you said you don't need to use a ranged weapon to be effective as a ranger. Those all sound like ranged weapon exclusive spells.
That may be true, however. Anyway, when it comes to actual ranger features, you can use the power of racism to decide what kind of creatures you're going to perform extra potent hate crimes on, and preferred terrain, where you can pick your favorite environment, and after trotting around picking flowers or litter, depending on what it is, you can become a fantasy Bear Grylls, which is basically real-life Bear Grylls, except with a kobold crew filming you instead. And if you worry that sounds too situational, and that if you picked a forest terrain and the entire campaign took place in the snowy mountains would mean the feature would be more useless than a football player who got tapped on the shoulder and started clutching their knees crying in the fetal position, don't worry, you're right, and it is. What isn't situational is just about everything else involved.
Okay, no one has black magic, so we're gonna have a hard time
and then not have to worry about the weeds that might otherwise slow you down from catching them and giving them a good weapon. When it comes to flavors of the no really trust us, you can totally use melee and still be a useful class. You have Pokemon Trainer with a gun, like Rogues but even dodgier, literally a monster hunter thinking with portals, and pew 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 pew. Alright, let's address the beholder in the room. The vanilla incarnation of the Ranger has a reputation of being less useful when compared to the other classes due to questionable abilities and how they function. That's not to say the class can't be useful or powerful in the right circumstances, but some consider the Ranger's situational and sometimes underpowered features to leave something to be desired. However, there's nothing wrong about talking to your DM about changing how certain skills work, if that happens to be the case, so that you can have more fun at your role-playing table. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's not about how many numbers you can do to the bad guys,
She
but
does!
whether or not you
Leonora, no, stop!
Out of the ground while firing bolts from your heavy crossbow atop a feathered velociraptor.
And now you know how to play Ranger. You're welcome. Ever since I was a child, I had to grow up on the streets, wrestling
Oh
alleyways
no, you
for
missed.
food and fighting guards for my own freedom. It was in those streets that I knew I couldn't trust anyone but myself. The only thing for sure was that I had to find the monsters who put me there, to exact my revenge, and finally put my restless hunger for blood at ease.
So is that why you're standing in the corner of a tavern conspicuously?
That's something deeply mysterious and intriguing for you to find out. But I doubt you'd understand all the pain and suffering I've had to endure to...
All right then, I'll see you later.
Wait, no, you were supposed to be deeply interested and ask me more about my backstory.
Wahoo.
You know what? I'm tired of being another cog in the machine of an adventuring party. I'm going off on my own, following my own creed and doing what needs to be done. That's right, I'm going rogue.
Sure, does it,
Do you get it? Rogues are the
Okay.
sneaky, savvy, skilly, willy utility monkeys of the Forgotten Realms, and the best pick if you're a backseat gamer since it lets you interrupt someone trying their best because they
Maybe I
weren't
should
doing
use
it
a
right.
Suna
However, if you want to marry
on
suit up
Edge.
even more than you already are, you also get expertise
One
so
of the
that you
books
can upgrade those
completely reworked
proficiencies
Ranger.
to animate
It's better,
protagonist
but you're
levels
still
of
playing off
ridiculous. Now I know
fighter,
what you're
or
thinking. This
better
sounds
off
a lot
playing
like
fighter.
Bard, and while that's partly true, the difference is
Oh,
rogues aren't
stop.
automatically assumed to be the comic relief. Instead, they're deep, dark, and brooding, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, holidays excluded because who could be grumpy on Christmas? The other main difference is their unique combat feature, the sneak attack. And because the names in D&D are always inaccurate, you don't actually have to be low to the ground and covered in shit to deal the sneak attack bonus damage, but rather anytime the enemy's just not
I think
feeling
my
up to
Minotaur
it today and
character
just
was
wants to
either
get
a
it
fighter
over
or
with. This means
barbarian.
that
Was
the
my
enemy's
favorite
being
character
flanked,
either
or if
way.
they're
How
laying prone on
interesting.
the ground, or they just bragged about how high their IQ is, you know, things that would make them really easy to stab. You are, incidentally, not very easy to stab since you have a whopping 4 goddamn features dedicated to make you more difficult to pin down than figuring out if that teasing banter you had with your friend actually hurt their
This thing
feelings
has
or
a lot
not.
of
You can
HP
dodge
as
when it's
well.
your turn, dodge when it's not your turn, dodge a giant ball of fire, and even dodge having to pay the bill on a first date. One especially unique trait of the rogue is their exclusive language, Thieves Can't. Thieves Can't what? I don't have the slightest clue, because it allows you to say a whole bunch of jargon that somehow translates into a completely different sentence. Timmy's having tea with the local blacksmith actually means let's go to the temple and steal some of the cleric's donations. Speaking of stealing, the thief archetype means you're especially fast at doing thiefy things, like picking locks, chugging potions, and hardcore parkour. Assassin makes your stabs extra stabby, and you can stab while disguising yourself as a child you saw who you can point to later and say they did it. Arcane Trickster basically turns you into a bard, except less talented or attractive, and allows you to hocus pocus somebody's wallet from 3 miles away. Mastermind is straight up Sherlock Holmes, complete with the assholery and catchy theme music. Swashbuckler won't stop bugging people to 1v1 them, and Scout, which is yet another better alternative to Ranger. Your job is to make sure everybody knows how much better you are at doing everything, because when the going gets tough, you know the party's going to turn to you one day and ask you to please pick the lock on the door to the king's castle because the bard accidentally kicked the guard in the genitals trying to seduce them. And you'll gladly show them all the skills you've learned from growing up in such a harsh and unforgiving environment that was once your home, forcing you to learn questionable memes and morally ambivalent beliefs in order to survive. Just try not to cut yourself on that edge while you're at it. And now you know how to play rogue, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Magic is dumb and stupid and makes no sense, and my brain hurts the more I try to figure out how it works. Except when bards use it, because bards are cool and mages are lame with their colorful flowy robes and giant obnoxiously fashionable hats. No, I'm not jealous, shut up. At the very least though, most of them work hard for their magical abilities, some of them cultivating it through skill and experience, others answering to a higher power, some having a codependent relationship with the arcane, and some lucky enough to have their parents bang a mystical creature and receive a small genetic loan of 1,000,000 mana. Welcome to a crap guide to D&D. Get your stupid hats ready, it's time for the casters, where your weapons suck,
Maybe I
your
should
armor
stop
suck, and
on
your
it
martial
as well.
skills are closer to that of the average D&D player. Instead, you'll be relying on the mystical, magnificent mass of magics, except in this case, not really relying on it, more like bullying it into doing what you want. Sorcerers are those who disrespect the rules of magic and can be easily manipulated, like it's some young adult who's desperate for food that isn't microwaved or takeout. Maybe that's why your hit die is the one used for Monopoly games. That's right, a pathetic D6, which likely means the DM won't have to do much to make you piss your pants in fear. The Sorc de Soleil's metamagic feature means you can enhance the spells you cast by paying off the essence of arcane with the inheritance money you got from your magical parents, and allows you to influence your spells to take on a variety of effects to your liking. Its effects include, but are not limited to, biased AoEs, angry AoEs, spells that gotta go fast, say, "Nuh-uh, I totally got you, I hit your shirt, clothing counts, get an extended spell warranty, double penetration, or even cast with the sound of your armpit farts if you don't feel like talking that day." And you can do all that and more by using your sorcery points, which has got to be the 2 most absolutely nerdiest words you could ever put together in a single phrase. It's also a weirdly effective safe word because it allows your magical BDSM to stop so your spell slots can catch their breath and recover. With archetypes, you have squishy clerics, zippy zappy, casty blasty, watch for the lightning, it gets nasty, darkness, 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 scaly and denial, and the only one that really matters, the Wheel of Wild Magic! Where you and whatever other lucky souls nearby get to experience the high-octane thrills of randomness. Think your pathetic magic missile just won't cut it, don't worry. With the right kind of luck, it could suddenly open up a one-way portal to the fire planes. Who knows what crazy, helpful, and/or harmful effects could happen due to your gambling addiction? Let's spin that wheel and see how wild we can get. I may have spun it a little bit too hard because of my stonkingly huge vessel, so we'll just let that go for a while. Now, the main difference between the three arcane casters is how they get their magic. While wizards take years studying for the ACT and warlocks keep having to pay interest to their demon lord shareholders, sorcerers' magic comes from the fact that they were born inherently talented instead of needing to do any actual work. That's why your casting ability is charisma, because we totally need more of those, and just because you can cast spells doesn't necessarily mean you're smart. But who cares what's smart when you can cast big spells with big effects so your big numbers can turn the big baddies into big piles of giblety experience points. Insert fireball joke. And now you know how to play sorcerer. You're welcome.
I'm gonna cast stop on those as well.
Hey you, yeah you sitting there with your saggy butt cheeks and emotionless
can't do
expression.
both at
I
the
know
same
what you're
time,
thinking.
but that
Boy,
makes
I wish I
sense.
could cast
That's a
spells,
pretty
but all I got
OP
is an
spell,
expendable
stop.
firstborn child and a willingness to work under a questionably immoral arcane master till the end of time. Well, that's just the exact sort of motivation we like for our employees at EDB Incorporated. And if you sign up with us, we'll be sure you're treated in a way that you deserve for assisting in furthering our goals to bring about the ruin of the entire multiverse. All I need you to do is sign here and agree to give us eternal servitude of your mortal soul. But on the bright side, we have dental. Welcome to a crap guide to D&D.
What's she do?
So you want to use magic, but only as much as you want to hug that one family member you keep seeing at reunions, but aren't quite sure how you're related. Then you may want to be a warlock, the fate gamers of the Forgotten Realms. How warlocks differ from the other casters is that the amount of times you can cast
Turning
your
into a
spells
plant
before
is the
running out of
absolute
spell
worst.
slots
You
is
can't use
absolute
actions, can't move, and become
Instead
vulnerable
of
to all
having a set
damage.
number of
Oh, I
spells
can
for each
imagine,
level of
yeah.
spell slot, you get a maximum of 4 spell slots for all your spells up to 5th level, and that's it. And a few other ones, but nobody cares about those. The flip side is that the spells you cast are always at their max level, and instead of having to take a long rest to get those slots back, all you need is an hour to have a wank, have a biscuit, and you're back on your feet. But you know what? Fuck real spells. You may think you're a caster, but really picking this class is
Oh my
purely
gosh,
an excuse
stop
to
is
do
a-
nothing but cast everyone's favorite
it's
cantrip,
a
Eldritch. Cast it at
godsend.
weddings, funerals, beach parties. Or you can just cast it randomly because the party's taking 5 hours to buy a single dagger from the shopkeeper and you're bored. Aside from casting nothing but Eldritch all day, the main draw of the Warlock is the fact that it's the greatest game of dress-up dolls of all time. Eldritch invocations allow you to custom tailor your Warlock so that it suits you better than my form-fit Kieran assless
Warlock
chaps.
was
You can
and
talk
is
to
a
animals
really
without
strong
needing
class.
to cast a spell,
So
go
I've
straight
heard
up
that,
invisible
yeah.
whenever
I don't
you
know the
want, but most
details. I
importantly,
really
there are
don't know much
invocations
about
that allow
Warlock.
you to customize your Eldritch so that whenever you shoot your gobbledygook at whatever poor
Gobbledygook.
sap that looked at you funny, you can pull them forward and do your best Scorpion impression, snipe them from 2 blocks away, or make the beam of arcane destruction smell like strawberries if you like. But it's not all fun in Eldritch because remember, you've signed a pact with a patron, so your power is being loaned to you from an all-powerful arcane sugar daddy. So you will have to pay interest if you want to make sure all that magic stays nicely tucked into your Eldritch sack. Luckily, they're not like bank loans because you can actually pay them off, and they're not always inherently evil. You have the choice of being bossed around by a literal devil who decided to make you their favorite person, so they're gonna be your mommy for a little bit. A skeleton who ironically refuses to let you die because you still owe him 2 platinum. Fairies who are just straight up assholes. Gods, so you're basically a cleric now. Literally Cthulhu. But forget all those because the only real option is to have your patron be a magically possessed sentient sword and shield that yells fuck when you swing it. Basically, you have such a huge amount of options to choose from with how you build your Warlock, it's very unlikely any 2 Warlocks will be the same. So get your shopping baskets, light some candles, have fun customizing. Oh, and remember, you have to sacrifice 3 more babies by the end of the week.
Gotta take care of that really quick.
Week or you're fired! And now you know how to play Warlock. You're
Gotta get Edge back up.
Impressive, you know? I mean, I've never had a student score 0 in everything before.
What do you mean? I chose exactly the perfect spell for every situation.
Well, you answered Fireball for every question.
What's your point, person within Fireball distance?
What I mean is you can't expect a big damaging area of effect spell to be the answer for everything. Maybe try some different spells, maybe Minor Illusion to trick the enemy. You can find a Fae or a Fiend to serve as your familiar, or even Prestidigitation.
Maybe
it has a
Raise keeps
surprising
healing
amount of
it.
uses, even though it costs nothing.
That's probably why
I'm
it
about to
takes so long to kill
Prestidigitate
them.
all over your desk if you keep suggesting lame-o spells.
What I'm saying is you should expand your horizons. A wizard is the apex of the arcane, the ultimate utility caster, and one of these days you're gonna find yourself in an encounter where Fireball isn't gonna... Where'd you go? What the fuck?
Welcome to Crap Guide to D&D!
Every time I hear about D&D stuff, it makes me want to play Baldur's Gate 3, but I couldn't get into Baldur's Gate 3.
The OG, the
struggle.
frail old man with a stick that shoots magic missiles at a few
I would like to
goblins
get
and then
more
has to go
into
door to door
Baldur's
telling
Gate
his
3.
neighbors he's a registered hex
Like, I
offender.
started
The
it on
wizard is the most
stream,
powerful
actually,
class if you
but
ignore
I
any
just
other
don't
classes
have-
that are
I don't have
stronger, which
time
are
to
all of
fit
them,
it into
because this
this,
thing is more fragile than a single layered sheet of toilet paper that's
schedule.
been soaking in the soggy crack of the bridge troll's ass cheeks. This class is the sorcerer's lamer, more studious, dorky neighbor who does all the
Fun
hard
fact,
work for
the
none
next
of the
studio
recognition. You get
hosted by
saving
this
throws and
guest had a
intelligence and
studio
wisdom
on
instead of
fire. Oh,
constitution
no.
and charisma, so sure you'll be able to ace that pop quiz and not have to worry about being distracted, but you won't be able to hold your liquor or score any hot dates at Chad Firebolt's party in the Golden Mansion his chromatic dragon dad bought him. If you're looking for the silver lining, the wizard is definitely the heaviest case of be careful who you call ugly in magic school. The wizard's spell list is thicker than the Storm King's thunder thighs. You gain spell slots like a shower drain gets hair, and during a short rest you can even choose a small amount of spell slots to recover depending on your level. Best of all, at higher levels you even get the ability to cast your favorite low-level spells as many times as you like. But who are we kidding? You're likely going to be dead before you reach that high, either killed by your own fireballs or killed by all your pissed off allies who
Your
are caught
own
in your
fireballs.
But hold your horses there, Mr. I actually believe wizard memes are as funny in the game as they are on social media. All your spells are tied to your spellbook because wizards have short-term memory loss, and unless it's a cantrip, you can only cast a spell if you have a 3-step tutorial with pictures to color. But the work doesn't just stop there. The stronger spells at higher levels are going to need expensive magical components to cast them if you don't want to embarrass yourself with arcanal dysfunction and suddenly your finger of death feels more like a finger of mild discomfort. People say wizards are the utility casters because of the massive amount of spells at their disposal, many of which are apparently great for a wide range of situations. I'm here to smartly inform you that those people are stupid. Use Fireball and only Fireball. Nothing but Fireball. Just Fireball.
Just Fireball.
Just Fireball. Because they are the nerds of D&D, wizards have an unhealthy amount of knowledge of all of the different schools of magic. So instead of having their archetypes based around a certain theme, they get one for each of the aforementioned schools of magic, which is too damn many to go over, and frankly, I don't have the time or gummy bears to last a whole lecture.
Gummy
Instead,
bears?
I'm going to quickly summarize each school of magic, and also war magic, because fuck you, and I'm gonna do it all in song! Evocation elements to burn or shock or freeze your friends. Necromancy spares the dying, or you could just resurrect them. Abjuration keeps you safe and almost makes your armor fair. Divination helps you sense, detect, commune, and talk to bears. Conjuration, portals and make stuff for free. Transmutation, turn things into other things. With enchantment, buff the buff or in between. And delusion, visual tricks to prank the brain with fear and silence. Blur and go invisible, pretend you're someone else's dad. Disguise mislead, take on their life. War magic is like tank mage, getting lots of defense, flexing as you cast. And now you know how to play wizard, you're welcome.
Those songs he makes are so good. Oh, it's the theme. Save. Oh boy. Gotta cast stop on both of them. Oh no, Leonora, you're the one who needs. Oh no. Let's run away. I have this song saved on my phone somewhere. Nice. when Apple allowed it, I used to have his wiggle head as an interactive home screen. Oh, that's unfortunate. They're gonna die from being paralyzed. Oh, yay. Oh, good. Back to the ship. Where's the ship? Pardon me? Good theme, good theme.
A wise man once said magic is dumb and stupid and makes no sense, and I trust that man. He wields a sword and a shield, so why use magic when you can use big brain energy and the power of science? And I know how much nerds love science, so much that they won't shut up about it and one day start making weird advances towards their Texas Instrument. Listen, we all have our urges, but seriously, get a server room. Welcome to a crap guide to D&D.
I'm gonna open my other box of sushi.
It's about damn time we got another intelligence caster. The stat is about as commonly used for spellcasting as your bedroom is used for sexy times. The artificer is an inventor who decided traditional magical means by accomplished wizards and scholars are too mainstream and decided to come up with their own magic spells and items after reading 2 articles by angry moms from Baldur's Gate who discovered casting real spells can actually give you genital flumps. Checkmate, sorcerers. Instead of that, you can tinker with items to imbue them with special properties like turning it into a flashlight, turning it into a scented candle, or turning it into a phone that can only record and play vines. The best part is that once you give the item the properties, it lasts forever, so go have fun enjoying your 7 seconds of fame before the service shuts down and you become a struggling vlogger. And speaking of messing with the natural properties of items, as you level up you gain infusions, which allow you to turn that sex toy you hide in the dresser from a basic vibrator to a vibrator. Infusions include, but are not limited to, boring stat increase, Thor's hammer, item dupe glitch, and go gadget blinka-boots! This is all due to your massive IQ rating of 20 billion, which is so high you can add your intelligence modifier to any of you or your ally party members' dice rolls and become the ultimate backseat gamer telling them about the bad guy's weak spots because there's no way their simple minds could have figured it out on their own. And if that doesn't work out, you can use one of the 50 magical items you've made yourself and refuse to part with like someone on an episode of Hoarders, or pull a fast one and throw the magical vibrator that you secretly stored a charge of fireball in. Being the new class that it is, the Artificer only has 3 subclasses so far, and no, I'm not going to cover the new ones that come out. Stop asking, I just want to go on vacation with my sword and shield already. The Alchemist is like a drunk doctor and gains a few healing spells, can buff allies with the power of drinking and gambling, and can help you grow closer bonds with your pets. If you want a big fuck-off gun, the Artillerist can create an Eldritch Cannon that can either fire 3 different kinds of artillery, or just sit there contributing nothing while you marvel at your amazing craftsmanship, because keeping track of more than one thing on the board is hard, isn't that right, Dungeon Master? And lastly, the Battlesmith, where you decide to stop being a puss baby and join the fight with a mystery-solving robo-dog sidekick. Okay. Ranger. Overall, the Artificer loves making, finding, and using loads and loads of magical items, which means you'll probably forget about half of your inventions because players can't be trusted to even remember the items they started with at the beginning of the campaign. Just make sure to keep them under good security so the rogue doesn't steal them all while you long rest and suddenly you wake up to the sound of Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture. Now you know how to play Artificer. You're welcome.
I had an engineer in mechanics and a chemist and I'm like going the wrong way. I had an engineer in mechanics and chemistry play as an artificer. So I hated him with such a passion. I see.
It's gonna get Kraska's race. Part of the role you can play. Some sentient clay, a he, she, or they. A beast who gets real snarly. A regular dude named Charlie. If homebrew is free, a big talking tree. Welcome to a crap guide to D&D. Arakakra, big fucking bird. You got some wings so you can fly, and if non-weapon melee's preferred, they get sharp talons to bit scratch a guy. Or maybe you're more of an Aasimar, still avian if you lower the bar, angelic people with radiant energy, or darkness if you flap your wings edgily. Bugbears aren't actually bears at all, more like beastly orcs and just as tall, but oddly sneaky and your arms are long, so you're really freaking good at playing basketball. But if going full beast is a little too far, you could always do half and decide to be a centaur, charging the enemies so they can readily get steadily back up while you stomp them deadly. For Sneaky Bunch, Changeling's cool, you make a disguise, get a worthless tool, you can change your face to whatever race, there's nearly no limit who you can fool. Dragonborn, no, not the Skyrim kind, are likely the kid of a bard that'll find dragons really hot, so now you shoot acid, or whatever other color your parents preferred acid. The typical dwarf with a beautiful beard, you work with your hands and are physically sturdy. You seem informed about rocks, which is weird, try not to obsess or the session will get wordy. Elves are pompous pricks, a dozen flavors to match and mix, they live a long time, don't sleep instead trance, and are hard to be charmed, so bards keep it in your pants. Pick a fearbulk, a chill-ass cow, most of which have druidic vow, and don't ask how, foul that they can turn invisible, which is a big concern. Genasi, elemental genie bastards. One of 4 elements that they have mastered in some way lets them do cool shit like waterbend or have a fire-breathing armpit. Githyanki Githzerai. Elves that look like they want to die. All they're about is how they clash. Been around 40 years and their lore still trash. Short stack. Gnome, happy short folk who are smart and wise and cunning and know how to crack. In the good camouflage, be it sneaking or magic or cool roguish montage. Whack is the goblin. Small size hits hard on your noggin. Their nimbleness makes it hard to keep pace. They'll hide and bide, quick slide and hit your face. Muscles are in, though I have bias. So the hottest IMO is Goliath. They're 8 feet tall, have steel for their balls, and can shrug off damage like one-man riots. Half-elves, the mutts and mules of D&D. Extra points to spend on 2 abilities and skills out the asses of best of both races, and backstories usually come from stupid places. Half-orc, like I said, muscles are in. You're a ruthless brute who fights to win. Your crits get crits and you can terrify. And if you feel like it, you can say no when you die. If your luck is nasty, the halfling's good. You re-roll ones and win like you should, and you're hard to scare, so go party with a dragon, and you can slip through if it's angry off the flag. And humans get a little bit of everything. They lack gimmicks or special flair or any zing, and are all around average. You know how it is, and the perfect pick if you're boring. Races, all the races. Races, all the races. There's plenty to choose from, too many, so come witness the list of this guide to all of the races. Hobgoblin. They trust in a code, be it God or communism or giant toad. They're a prideful chode, so whenever you fail, the more watch you retry means you go beast mode. If you're an edgy avian, Kenku sneaky, agile and crafty and can easily lie. They can mimic voices to be a bit cheeky. Too bad they get bullied because they can't fly. The kobold is a mischievous one. They hate bright light, and there's often more than one. They can trick dumb fools and steal their jewels, but ganging up together can be pretty fun. Guess it's scaly hours, cause lizard folk have sticks up their ass and can't take a joke. They can bite and craft and stay a while underwater, and have hard ass scales to block cannon fodder. Loxodon are straight up elephants. They're large size and thick hide, make them dense. Got trunks to smell and are wise and mostly merry, but piss one off and you'll see they're damn scary. Wanna breathe underwater? Lokatha is a fish, a straight up fish, literally just a fish. Your armor starts high and get tons of resistance. Stay dry and you die, you're still just a fish. Big beastly bull is a minotaur. Got horns to charge if you run pretty far, make them shit their pants while you're at it. Being big and scary is a habit. Speaking of orcs, superstitious and strong, but also often wrong with a -2 to int. That's okay, so to say, you're aggressive and massive. Got angry parents means they're rarely passive. Cat girls rejoice, Tabaxi is here, obsessed with stuff and quite the sightseer. Fast like a cat, get claws and climb far. Tons of coats like leopard, tiger, and jaguar. Tiefling's a demon with a lot of looks. They're horny and hot and often a provoker in the lore anyway, a lot of hate. It's normal, I guess, when you're a panty soaker. If you want to be a big reptilian who's strong and hardy, then Tortle has a shell that's AC's a million, so have fun being a hermit immortal. Triton is just an aquatic elf who evolved itself in the continental shelf, and you're basically Aquaman. Fish can understand you. No, they won't do your laundry just because you demand to. The Verdant, like a goblin, but pretentious. Mind powers that make mystics contentious. Bunch of passive shit. What is this, peace hour? Come back and talk to me when you learn real power. You want pureblood like humans, but snaky. Never make a date with one, I hear they're flaky. Manipulative bunch with magic resistance. Don't take their oral offer, no matter the persistence. Fair human mix is the Kalishtar. Got a lot of mind shit that's really bizarre, like telepathy. Dream protectively, like angels if they couldn't be effectively. The Shifters, like a half lycanthrope, with 4 different types with exclusive features. You can't transform, at least not fully, so you often look more like a freakish creature. Simic hybrids are a random fusion of aquatic things, like a squid or a crab. Gain bonuses, depending which one, so have some big pincers for new ways to stab. Warforged, robots forged for war, don't have to eat or sleep or breathe, and what's more is you're tanky as well, being hard to steal. The only downside is you'll never truly feel. Vidalkin tells us nobody's perfect. Look like Navi people without the long neck. They get lots of bonuses, so smart's not shocking. Good luck ever getting one to stop talking. And that's the lot, and always remember class race.
Ooh, that's a lot of money.
Pretty
Okay.
seldom. Use whatever
That's
you
the last
fancy.
thing I'll buy for a while.
Dancing. Now you know how to pick your race. You're welcome.
Oh no, she can't use it? Oh no. Oh, it's because of the flame shield.
There's plenty to choose from, too many, so come witness the list of this
There we go.
guide to all of the races.
Yeah, okay. It's fine, it's fine.
What's wrong, you pathetic, sad, procrastinating dungeon master? Can't come up with a worthwhile and interesting combat encounter and you only have half an hour before the session because you spent the last week fascinating about a totally different campaign you wish to run one day but ultimately know you never will because you're in a constant state of prep work and insecurity? That's okay, everybody knows no matter how basic the combat is, it's going to take forever anyway thanks to any spellcasters and people on their phones, and is mostly just a chance for the DM to stall for time while they figure out the next story beats. That and an excuse to show off whatever art of the thing the players are fighting that the DM paid $3 grand in commissions or mini miniatures to make for them, or you could just grab whatever the nearest thing on your shelf is and say, fuck it, we're fighting this little bastard today. Welcome to A Crap Guide to D&D. Goblins are one of the most iconic creatures in Dungeons & Dragons, famous for being low and mid-level cannon fodder, having the respawn rate of a seahorse playing Call of Duty, and being overall superior to kobolds in every way. Goblins are what you default to when you have no idea what the party should be fighting, because they're just so splattered all over the realm that everyone just accepts that they can show up anywhere.
Alright, got myself some milk and cookies for some hunts, and I'll open the fridge and put the milk back where it went, and close the fridge and go get my milk.
God, Jesus, what the fuck? Goblins were originally created by the hobgoblins, who one day got really lazy and decided to make a generation of poor saps that they could shove all their baggage onto and then blame for when the economy they don't have a say in gets destroyed. This has sort of evolved into how goblins mostly live in tribes where the biggest asshole is the leader and everybody else is just sort of used to being treated as poorly as a retail worker. That's not to say all goblins are meek little green muppets. Given enough size and numbers and time to prepare an ambush, and even the most basic goblin squads can turn an 8th level party into the aftermath of eating at White Castle. This is because goblins are a culture constantly raiding like they're trying to get world first and have a knack for throwing themselves at the first thing they see that looks like they could potentially bite its ear off. They're also somewhat smart. Leaders of goblin tribes consistently place first in tournaments of Connect 4, and the race as a whole frequently mounting and fighting alongside creatures such as wards, which are oversized wolves that are perpetually angry as people keep stealing their art off Instagram. If you ever decide to play as a goblin, you'll receive a little bit of dex and con from being agile and resilient little gremlins, and the ability to quickly pussy out of combat like you're at a friend's house and the parents started arguing. And Fury of the Small, where you get to punch below the belt and make the enemy's voice go up as many octaves as your player level. That's the general idea of what goblins are supposed to be in the Forgotten Realms, but this is D&D, which means everybody breaks the rules more than an episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! And the fact that goblins are so adaptable to so many situations and environments means that there's no limit to how they can be portrayed or what they can be used for. You can make them mindless monsters that fill the last few empty rooms of a dungeon, or adorable little scamps that the party will adopt the instant they see them, or design them so unexpectedly attractive that it'll make people question if they've discovered a new fetish or if it was there all along and this was just its awakening. You too can throw an endless supply of XP at your party while giving them conflicting feelings on stomping on an innocent little cutie pie that was just minding its own business and just wanted a little bit of love. Isn't that right, you sweetie petite? Ow, son of a bitch. And now you know how to use goblins. Booyah!
Didn't you already make a crap guide to Barbarian?
Well, yes, but actually no, that one's garbage. It's shit. It's poopy doopy and in need of some update and polish like a live service game 2 minutes after release. I've gained a whopping 1 additional point in my intelligence since then, and I'm now superior in every way. Smarter, stronger, more wiggly than ever before. And this is the only one I'm doing, so don't hold your breath for the others. They're perfect forever. So let's start from the top. D&D is for dorks, what with all the complex words and math. It's packed to the brim with a bunch of mechanics and systems, and nobody has the time to read because they're too busy not playing D&D. But no worries, you third-string athlete who occasionally looks at their old high school pictures and then reflects in the mirror wondering what happened. Lucky for you, I have a class that'll need as much brain power as varsity had to use on their midterms. And all you gotta do is learn how to throw a tiny plastic icosahedron just like how you threw every single game coach put you into. Welcome to A Crap Guide to D&D. Everybody likes to hit things, and D&D is the best because you can literally hit anything you want, including the other players, and what better class to hit everything than the Barbarian, who's the best at hitting things and never stopping hitting things. Having a D12 hit die means you have around a googolplex of hit points by level 2, and unarmored defense means the chunkier you are, the better you can block and avoid attacks because the enemy is too distracted at how your fat hairy tits are flailing about. Better yet, you have Spider Sense, which allows you to avoid traps, spells, social events, and laundry like you've just moved out of your parents' house and are trying to get your life together. But enough about defense. The real reason to play Barbarian is to hit it very hard, going into a bloodthirsty You can channel your anger into the might of 1,000 dads who just felt the thermostat get adjusted, and during your rage you become the world's greatest goblin juicer. You gain bonus damage, advantage on strength checks, and any and all physical attacks will bounce off of your day 1 patched pecs. As you gain levels, you get progressively angrier and angrier, getting a straight up flat increase to your movement speed, an extra heavy swing when you land a crit, and become too angry to die potentially forever as long as you keep hitting things. As far as flavors of
rage
goes, there's the Berserker if you want to swing your weapon like it's taped to a ceiling fan, mistaken stupidity for bravery, and have an unlimited supply of Uno reverse cards. Alternatively, the Totem Warrior is like a gateway furry, where you channel your favorite Robin Hood crush and pretend everybody is Prince John. Battle Ranger could become a really pissed porcupine, Storm Herald if you want to make the environment around you as pissed as you are, Zealot if you want to be a giant paladin with a smite and aura that's made with 0 sugar, and Ancestral Guardian if you're a scared little bitch. Offense is the only offense, and I will have none of these tactics in my combat encounters. What, you thought I biggered my brain so I could think harder and waste time when all that planning
Force
fails because
change
of a
the
bad
moon
roll and then I have to
phase.
sit around
This
being
is all we're
useless for the
gonna
rest of the
get.
session? What do you take me
Yeah, I
for? Some
think
kind of
so.
wizard? Well, do you? Huh? Fuck you, I'll beat the shit out of
With
you.
this
You think
particular
you're better
party,
than me
it's
just
not
'cause you
gonna
can
work.
count? I hope you like being pavement lotion because you're gonna be filling all the cracks in my driveway. And now you know how to play Barbarian. You're welcome. Hi, I just wanted to take a sec for more people to notice and understand this disclaimer. Most importantly, this part, I don't actually want to upset anybody. It's all part of the character, and I hope everyone keeps that in mind. We good? Okay. Everybody likes personality quizzes, right? See what's your spirit animal, how burnt of a toasted slice of bread you are, what's your worst trait as an employee based on the brand of cereal you like to buy. They're great because most of the time, if you don't like what the quiz results give you, you can look up which answers contribute to what result and just get the one that you wanted in the first place and then brag about it on social media. Wow, would you look at that? I'm such a Slytherin because I'm so cunning, right? Yeah, well, joke's on you. That was all an intelligent ruse. I'm actually a Ravenclaw. Or am I? Same with star signs. They're just vague enough that they can boil down to, you're a thoughtful individual who sometimes overthinks things.
Oh no, I disagree with that one.
At the end of the day, wants to do the best that you can for the people you care about while never settling for the worst possible outcome. And I could say I just described a Libra and they'd eat that shit up like they're a pet that just found some stray cardboard. Luckily, Dungeons and Dragons doesn't have any of that dumb personality shit that nerds argue about for hours on the internet in hopes to
It's your Uncle Joe?
the other side with facts and logic or anything. Welcome to a crap guide to D&D. An old relic of the past and the easiest way to start fights both on and offline, the D&D alignment chart is its version of a personality quiz that no one can agree on. You've likely seen this tic-tac-toe board being used with pop culture characters being placed in each segment, giving a vague idea of what each of them means. But then all it takes is for you to put someone in the wrong place and then everyone starts throwing fists as if they had just found out that you used their facial hair razor to shave your butthole. Remember, characters can only be one alignment forever and must only ever do things considered to be that alignment because thinking about character depth and development is hard, and when people disagree with me, I
There was
take
a
it as
burnt piece of
personal attack.
toast
More
on the
importantly,
screen.
as a player, you get to say what your character's alignment is, and no one can ever debate that you're not playing that alignment.
Oh, I
because
see,
you know
I
your
see.
character
Okay,
better
okay.
than they
I
do,
get
and
it
they're
now.
just jealous and wish their scrubby sheet was as cool as yours, so they can suck fat nards. Small smooth brains think lawful means
What
the
does
literal
illusions
sense as
do
in
again?
following the law, but instead what it
remember.
really means is having a strict set of rules, whether it be moral, legal, or because your boss is telling you to do it. It's one of the most predictable alignments. 99% of the time when a lawful
None of them
character
have
sets
fire.
out to do
Gecko
something
has
through a
fire.
promise or obligation, they actually follow
Oh,
through, which
that's
is
what
why
that
they make
does.
great fitness instructors, because
Human
when
kite?
they say
That's
they're
like
not
jump.
gonna fuck your mom, they
Big
actually
throw.
don't fuck your mom. A lawful good act is keeping the promise because it's the right thing to do. A lawful mission keeps the promise because it is a promise and they're gonna stick
The way
by
he
it,
flies
even if
off is
fucking your mom
funny.
saves the universe. And a lawful evil keeps the promise because they're gonna fuck your dad instead, since you technically didn't say anything about him. Inversely, the chaotic side of the chart are for characters that don't give a fuck about their integrity and do whatever the hell they want because they feel like it. Small smooth brains will use this alignment as an excuse to be a total wangrod and have an inconsistent character with no
he's
definable
still-
traits.
oh,
Also
just
known
kidding.
as the chaotic alignment's more recognizable cousin, the
Yeah.
stupid alignment, with its constant wacky lol so random XD approach to playing their character. The most common examples of chaotic acts are lying, cheating, and stealing, aka part of a rogue's balanced breakfast. A chaotic
A
good is
rogue's
stealing from the
balanced
rich and giving to
breakfast.
the less fortunate. A chaotic neutral cheats to win a tournament and uses the winnings to eat something aside from a bread sandwich every night. And a chaotic evil will lie about not fucking your dad again and then burst into his bedroom as soon as you blink like a really slutty weeping angel. The good and evil sides of the alignment chart are pretty straightforward. Good is if you're a good person, and evil if you're a jackass. But that's a small, smooth-brained, surface-level understanding of good and evil, as in no, just because you don't stab people doesn't mean not stabbing them is a good act, just because stabbing
Everyone's
them is a lot
36
easier. Good
now.
acts are
Well,
ones
like,
that
we
go
have a
out of
few
the character's way to do good and
35s,
help
but-
others, sometimes even to the good person's detriment, and oftentimes even if there's
Cool.
no
Okay,
promise of any sort of reward in return
we'll keep
for the
looking
act.
in the
Like
party
using your
until
own
one of
hand
them
to
hits
get a friend's favorite
37.
Lego
Oh
set
my
out of the
gosh,
toilet, even
we're
after a night of really
making
spicy
progress,
curry. In
guys.
contrast, evil is pretty straightforward, i.e. actions that could actively harm people or not caring about how those actions could knowingly harm people. An evil act would be being the person who threw the Lego set into the toilet, knowing full well it could be somebody's favorite. But good and evil doesn't just mean motives, it means methods too. And just because you have nice ends doesn't mean having mean means makes it any less mean. Example,
Mean
you've caught
means.
a kidnapper and need to find out where they're hiding their captive so you can save them. A good act could be offering some snacks and a binge watch of their favorite show in return for information, whereas an evil act would be chopping their nipples off. The neutral cross of the alignment chart is for players who are terrified of commitment and refers to acts that
Terrified
either
of
don't fall on
commitment.
either side of the good evil.
Oh, you know
or
what? No,
the
not this
chaotic
group.
side of the
No, no,
spectrum.
no.
Or characters that are horse for choice and like to do whatever tickles their pickle the most, depending on the situation. Maybe they'll be employee of the month for one boss and then shit on the desk of their next. Basically, the neutral ends of the alignment chart are the most pure and concentrated, like the curvature of my butt cheeks, and do basically anything and everything that could be considered the essence of that side.
How'd
of
that
the chart.
happen?
And of course, the middle ground, true neutral, aka
I'm
the one
confused.
that's
How were
always
they able
playing
to kill
devil's
the
advocate for
thing,
literally
the thing?
everything, like they spend 10 hours a day discussing
Enough
opinions
damage?
on Reddit. it. And there you have it, the totally accurate, totally objective descriptions for each side of the alignment chart with no room for any other interpretations whatsoever. And if anyone tries to argue otherwise, they can suck fat nards. Also, never let players pick their own alignment, because when they do, it actually looks like this. But that's totally because I'm such a Gemini, and we don't think people are self-aware enough to be able to categorize themselves without being subconsciously influenced by their own personal biases. And now you know how to use alignment. You're welcome.
Okay. Okay.
You may think you know D&D, but guess what, nerd? You don't. Not until you understand what the fuck is all this shit. What is this? What is this? Why do I need to know animal handling? The fuck is Arcana? The shit are hit dice. What's a proficiency bonus? Why are Electrum pieces so stupid? Well, strap in for a formal education, ass hair. I'm gonna reteach you how to do math, because let's be honest, you still use a calculator to add and subtract single digits. Welcome to a crap guide to D&D. This is your character sheet. Your character cannot exist without it. However, it doesn't always have to look like this. It could be a simple flashcard, a scribbling in a notebook, or an app on your phone if you like being spoon-fed like a baby who laughs at the phrase pee-pee poo-poo watermelon. And when playing as a character in D&D, you will refer to the character sheet whenever you have to roll the various kinds of dice that decide the outcome of your actions. Many are intimidated by this mighty thingy's magnificence, but mourn them ye shall not, for they be weak-ass bitches. It looks like a whole lot, but get a hold of yourself and take it one step at a time. The first person to voluntarily stick something up their butt didn't get anywhere by crying about how intimidating it is to stick something up their butt. They just did it, and look how far we've come. First of all, at the top we have the basics: name, class, race, background, and dumb BuzzFeed quiz results. These things will determine later things, so don't worry about those things until we come to them later. But if you don't know what you want those to be yet, that's okay. We can mosey on over to this tower of pimps, which will be the most
I've only ever
important
used Electrum as casino coins.
These are your basic stats, the strengths and weaknesses of your character, and the main determiner of whether you're going to be snooping or spooping when dungeoning those dragons. Strength is your strong, heaping muscles, how much shit you can carry, how well you can push or pull heavy objects, and how well you can make your pecs dance. It also determines the weapon damage for most melee weapons, but we'll get to that later. Next is dexterity, the little bitch version of strength. It's your hand-eye coordination, reflexes, and balance, and how well you can hide your handheld when you hear mommy and daddy stomping up to your room like Godzilla. Where strength is about how you can plow through a table being thrown at you, dex is about how you can limbo walk under it. Dex can also be used with what are called finesse weapons, which lets you pick between the two physical stats when rolling attacks and damage in case you skipped arm day. Constitution is your general vitality, how healthy you are, your endurance, and is used for rolls as frequently as a millennial eats breakfast. It mostly only affects your overall hit points, but it's still fairly important and can be treated like the amount of candy in your pantry. You only realize how little you have once you see somebody else with lots of it. Intelligence is dumb. That is, unless you pump it up for big galaxy brains and become smarter than the average bugbear. It's used for general knowledge-based checks involving things like recalling info on history, magic, religion, and most importantly, defeating things with facts and logic. To generalize, it's book smart, so you know a lot of things. It's also used as a spellcasting modifier for both the wizard and artificer classes. Oh, don't worry, we'll get to spellcasting later. Impatient bitch. Wisdom is one that confuses a lot of people because they think it's just like intelligence, and I'm willing to bet those are the kinds of people who think cheese and mayonnaise can coexist on a sandwich. No, wisdom is more your street smarts and also general senses. It's knowledge based on practice and experience. No, not that experience. And it's the difference between knowing if a plant is poisonous and knowing that the person who told you it was poisonous lied about it because they don't want you finding their beloved lemon tree, you damn lemon whores. It's also the casting ability of clerics, druids, and rangers. Finally is charisma, how to tell if your character fucks. It can mean anything from your general likability to approachability to public speaking ability to betting ability. It's your charm, your confidence, and general way with people, whether it be luring them into a trap or aggressively scaring them so bad that they actively jump onto the trap out of fearful compliance. And it's the casting ability for bards, paladins, sorcerers, and warlocks, because remember, you gotta look pretty for the boss patron if you want to get that big eldritch bonus. Now that we're done covering ability scores, we can go over how you get them. And there are 3 generally used methods. If you're a wee baby who needs to meticulously make your perfect OC or else it won't be faithful to your precious self-insert, there's the point buy system, which works like a basic video game. All your stats start at 8 and you have a pool of points, usually 27, to distribute between them all, with the cost going up to 2 points per ability score increase higher than 13 and the cap being at 15. If you hate math, that's too bad because there's going to be loads of it later, but if you want slightly less of it, there's also standard array, which gives you the numbers 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8 to arrange on any of your scores. But if
I like to just roll for my stats.
You want to put your character into the grubby hands of Arn Jesus, there's the most widely known method, which is rolling 4d6 and dropping the lowest number. This can get you scores anywhere from a whopping 18 to a poo-poo dookie 3 if you're dealing with a sadist who doesn't do grace rolls, but often results in overall chunkier stats. Whatever method you do, each number corresponds to a second number. Ooh boy, are you overwhelmed yet? You have to keep track of 2 whole numbers. What a crazy catastrophic conundrum. Well, don't you worry your stubby earlobes, because those big numbers aren't really that important. Their main purpose is to determine a smaller number called a modifier, which means you can totally ignore this number when you actually start to pillage the village. There's a fairly simple mathematical equation to figure out what each number's bonus is, but I know you're a dumb silly man, so here's a chart. Now will you stop crying about it? The reason the ability modifier is important is because it's what you add to your dice roll whenever they're applicable. So if you have a lot of strength, you're gonna get a little extra oomph whenever you need need to punch the vending machine when your chips are stuck. Have low charisma and you're gonna have a hard time convincing the janitor that you weren't the one who broke it. Keep in mind, you can still roll great with low stats and roll badly with high stats. But having high ability modifiers makes it so your rolls are more in your favor. Now that you have your scores all placed and your modifiers figured out, now we can determine where those modifiers go, which means we can look at this spaghetti jumbly mess of words. Now don't go running a mommy calculator just yet. It's so easy even Fighter-Man can figure it out. At the top here,
one of my
your
favorite
saving
characters
throws.
has
These
super
are your
high
defenses
int
and
charisma,
resistances,
but a
the
6
various
in
bad
wisdom.
bats
Oh
that will squish you
no.
up and turn you into a turd. Things like traps, area of effects, most spells, and that little voice telling you that you're making poor decisions. You don't roll these on your own most of the time. Instead, your DM will ask you to make them whenever you're put in harm's way. And you see these little spaces? That's where your ability modifiers go. That's right! This way you can refer to these numbers to add to your rolls whenever they come into play. Look how smart you are. I could just give you a wedgie right now. Next are your skills. These are the various different capabilities your character is able to do in a regular game of D&D. And each one is affected by your ability scores, just like your saving throws. And just like your saving throws, there's this trusty little space for you to put your awesome stompy and hoodoo modifiers. And how can you tell what ability mod goes where? Well, you foolish mortal wombat. Just look at this helpful little parenthesis that tells you what it's attributed to. Go down the list and now you have a reference for what your character's good or terrible at. Got high dex? Well, congratulations, your sleight of hand means you can cheat at poker better. Bad at intelligence? Well, then you're probably not going to know who President Dingle Bloopy Noop is during the history segment of Are You Smarter Than a Kobold? Now, we're not quite done yet with this llama lot. We gotta go over what proficiency is.
Proficiency.
Proficiency is what separates the fake gamers from the hardcore top 500 ultra platinum uber pros, and you can find it in this little dingle. Starting at level 1, your proficiency bonus is 2, and it increases as you level up more and more. Basic gist, it goes up by 1 every 4 levels. This number is added to anything you are proficient, aka trained with. And as far as saving throws and skills go, this will be signified by a little check mark. And which ones those little check marks go into is determined by a combination of your class, background, and on rare occasion, race. For example, a fighter has proficiency in strength and con saving throws, so wha-bam, wha-bam! Add those numbers. They also get to choose 2 skills to be proficient with from this list according to the parrot hambone. Normally you would pick your own, but here we're just gonna go athletics and perception. Wha-bam! Wha-bam! Let's say you're also a hermit. You get these 2 skills to be proficient in. Wha-bam! Always remember, whenever you're proficient with something, it means you get to add this sexy number on top of whatever appropriate ability mod.
Oh, you thought that was
proficient in athletics, roll a d20, add strength mod, add proficiency bonus. And if at any point you forget what you're proficient in, just refer back to the player handbook for your race, class, and background.
Let me deal with these monsters first.
90% of Dungeons and Dragons works. You feeling smart yet? You feeling like you can wrestle a spider cow? Well, sit the hell back down because we're not done yet.
Combat.
Now that we're done with the stat portion of the character sheet, we can look at the combat portion. This section is what you refer to when your DM says clickety-clackety, you're about to get attackety. Up at the very top left is your armor class, or AC for short. This by default is 10 plus your dexterity modifier. No, I said the modifier, not the score. Pay attention. However, this can be increased by the different types of armor. Whichever one you start with will depend on which class you pick. Next is initiative. Whenever an encounter begins, initiative is rolled and determines...
Okay. Hello. Thank you for the raid. How are you, Beauregard? How was your stream? It is Joe Cat. Yeah. Joe Cat's crap guide to D&D classes is how I found him initially. Oh, okay. I think that I may have actually been... That was my first exposure to him as well. Don't these predate even his Monster Hunter videos? Yes. These are from like 4 or 5 years ago. You're chilling? Nice. Yeah, we're chilling too. I'm just grinding. So we've been watching stuff on the side while I've been grinding, because you know I'm just killing a bunch of monsters constantly. So just to make things a little more interesting. Thank you so much for the raid. Let me get let me give you a shout out really quick. Please check out Beauregard.
Who goes first and who stacks dice for the next half hour. This number is the same as your dexterity modifier and is added to your initiative roll at the beginning of an encounter. And this last little block is speed, which is how much you can move across the checkerboard each turn. Each square equaling 5 feet of movement if you're normal and use the Imperial system, and is initially determined by your race or how well you can try to convince your DM that your character ran track in high school. Below that are the hit points, maximum, current, and temporary. Your maximum hit points is like an anime fan's figure shelf after about 2 conventions. You can try to fit more, but we all know any extras.
I should probably introduce myself to raiders who've never been here before. Hi raiders, welcome. My name is Kosmikameruhen. I am what you would call a reverse isekai princess from a fairy tale. Although to you guys, I'm from a fairy tale, but it was actually my life, my world. And I ended up in this world due to an unfortunate incident. TLDR, I'm here and I fell in love with video games. Hello. No pressure to stay. We're we're not gonna be around for too much longer. Actually, we're gonna wrap up in about 10 or so minutes. I mainly play. I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan, so that's what we're playing currently. We're playing Final Fantasy IV: The After Years, which is the sequel to Final Fantasy IV. And currently, I'm just grinding to get the levels up of the party members. We're reaching the end of the game, and the monsters are very strong. So I decided to get them to like a certain level before we proceed. Oh, thank you so much. But no pressure to say again. Feel free to take off if you're hungry or tired. I know it's later in the evening for most people. So yeah, we're gonna keep grinding for a little bit, and then we'll wrap up. But feel free to hang out until then.
Sit on your desk next to all your empty cups. It's determined by your class, each one having its own size of hit die plus your constitution modifier. Because D&D is a communist game and believes in universal healthcare, at first level you always receive the highest possible roll for hit points. But for every consecutive level you can either roll for it or take the coward's way out and take the average increase instead. And then your current hit points are pretty obvious. It's the amount of blood you still have inside your body at the moment. Reach 0 and your character skips 50 seconds ahead of this video. Lastly, there are temporary hit points which go above the maximum hit points and you only ever get on special occasions via spells, special abilities, or the local grandma lizard folk just made you a delicious bowl of her legally ambiguous performance-enhancing herbal soup. Keep in mind a couple of things. Temporary hit points are kind of like the skin-tight leather jackets from the 90s X-Men movies, in that they don't stack on top of each other and you have to pick which one you want to keep if given multiple of them. And if you're on the floor dying from a stab wound, putting it on won't magically stitch it together. And what are these two lonely boxicles? Well, my stupid student, they're yin and yang, two sides of a coin, one for when you're alive and the other for when you're unalive. The former being your hit dice. You have as many of these as your player level and can spend them whenever you take a sit for as long as a single episode of a Netflix original show to recover your hit points. What size of hit dice is once again determined by your class, and you get them back whenever you binge an entire season's worth of a Netflix original show. But what do you do when you're bleeding out while dressed in a 90s teenager's idea of a sexy badass superhero? If your current hit points ever reach 0, you have to look over on this touch.
I'm gonna swap them out. I'm gonna make sure that I only have like one party member that can use the stop spell at a time.
D20 to see whether you luck back to life or have a very awkward reunion with those bandits you killed 5 minutes ago.
More
Roll a 10
evenly
or higher and you
distributed.
gain a success, 9 or lower and you get a failure. 2 failures if you drop a fat stinky nat 1, 3 successes or a lucky 20 and you hop back to 1 hit point. 3 failures and your character sheet becomes the DM's ass wiping supplies.
Oh my.
This section is where you throw in all your various flavors of stabs. If you have a weapon or attack of some kind, you write it in here and refer to it during combat. Say it's a sword and shield. Yes, both. You would write down the name of the weapon here. Then next to it is the attack bonus, aka how accurate your weapon is. No, not the damage. This number is determined by your strength modifier for most weapons, unless it's a ranged weapon like a bow, in which case you use your dex mod instead. Or if it has the finesse property, which allows you to pick either. On top of that, if you're proficient with that weapon, you can add that good old bonus to it too.
But how do you know if you're proficient with a weapon?
Let's put a peen in that. Alternatively, if it's a spell attack
like
Eldritch
a peen.
Your attack bonus becomes your spellcasting ability modifier. Let's take a bard for instance, which is the slut stat plus your proficiency bonus. Whenever you roll a d20 to see if your attack lands, you get to add this number to the total. Alternatively, if it's a spell or special item like a bunch of ball bearings thrown in attempts to recreate Home Alone that requires the enemy to make a saving throw, you can put the saving throw in difficulty class instead.
But how
Balls.
do you know what that number is?
We're gonna put a peen in that too. Shut up. Once you have that number, to the right of it is the damage roll, aka how aggressively you're going to introduce the enemy's face to your sword. This is included in the description of whatever weapon or spell you are using. Whether it be a light jab at their insecurities, a proverbial pounding of pornographic proportions, or 8d6 fire damage in a 20-foot radius, just fire them! Most weapons also include your strength modifier to the damage, unless once again it's a ranged weapon which uses dexterity or a finesse weapon which uses either. The difference being that you don't add your proficiency bonus to this roll unless something says otherwise, and most spells don't add any additional modifiers unless their wall of text explicitly says so. And lastly, make sure you include what kind of damage you're dealing so your DM can know that your psychic damaging vicious mockery won't do much against a revenant because their self-esteem is already in the grave. To recap, when you attack, roll a d20, add this number which is these, then if you hit the enemy's AC, you roll these, and add this number which is this.
Spellcasting.
We're going to take a little break from the main sheet to look at this sheet that has a list of all your accomplishments. Oh, look at that, it's blank. This is the spell sheet. If you're playing a character that's capable of casting spells, then you're going to take a gander over to this sheet whenever you cast them. Up here at the top, you can put your spell casting class in case you're absurd and tend to forget which spells go where, your casting ability, which will depend on the class, your spell save difficulty class, and your spell attack bonus. So hey, remember that peen we put in for spells in your attacks? Well, it's time to unpucker that sucker because here it is, the spell save difficulty class, also known as DC. This is referred to whenever you cast a spell that requires the enemy to make a saving throw. And how this is calculated is 8 plus your cast mod plus your pof bone. Once you've got all that figured out, the rest of the sheet is for keeping track of all your spells and slots. You write down the spells you have for each level, how many slots you have total as well as expended, and if you have the spell prepared or not. Note, only certain casting capable classes apply. Please refer to the player handbook or any other supplementary book regarding your class to find information on what methods you have to go about obtaining and preparing spells. What, unsure of what spell slots are because your brain's too smooth? Well, sit the shit
Your brain's too
you
smooth?
get and listen up. The weakest level of spells are called cantrips, or sometimes level 0 if you don't care about hurting
Nice.
their feelings, and they can be cast as many times a day as you want. First level spells and upwards, however, require a resource called spell slots to be cast, or else you'll have to find out the hard way that casting Thunderwave without
spell
having
slots
your
makes
beauty
it so
sleep
hard
will
in
make
the
the life or
beginning.
death battle with the Underlord of Darkness a lot less epic and a lot more smelling like last night's kebabs. And if the name spell slot makes things too confusing for you, you can use my personal preferred name for them, Mage Bullets. How many Mage Bullets you have per spell level and how you recover them is determined by your specific class and level. So just like 99% of this entirely redundant video, if you want more information, it's best to read the parking himbo. And keep track of your goddamn slots. Because if you don't and just so happen to be able to cast 5 mage hands a day under section 3, chapter 1, paragraph 12 of the Code of Gelatinous Noobs, the DM has full rights to eat your dice. After looking in the mirror and taking some serious self-reflection after the apocalyptic chasm of the divide of the fanbase that was 4th edition of D&D, Wizards of the Coast started to take into consideration for the next version of D&D what gameplay features they wanted to invite to future parties and what gameplay features they needed to take out back and tell to think about the pretty space butterflies.
Oh, I
One
accidentally
such
took a
old yeller
screenshot.
victim was the Virgin alignment chart being completely overshadowed by the Chad personal characteristics, each one being a useful tool to remind you of your character's interests, motivations, shortcomings, and sexual fantasies. You never know if you're going to end up having to fuck your way out of a problem, so it helps to be prepared and know exactly what position will be the most in character. Personality traits are the broad strokes of your character. Likes, dislikes, interests, manners, whether or not they think something's a soup or a salad. Ideals are their drive, their principles, and what they vote for during election time. Or if they don't care about voting at all and prefer to stay home to catch a once-in-a-lifetime live marathon rerun of Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Bonds are personal attachments and experiences they've had. It could be a good friend, a fond memory, or your favorite glow-in-the-dark bouncy ball that always seemed to bounce a little bit weirder than all the other ones. And lastly, flaws, which 99% of the players don't actually understand and will probably put something inconsequential, like clumsy. Not me, though, because I'm flawless and perfect. Oh, you don't think so? Well, could a person with weaknesses do this?
All of this other shit.
Now remember that peen we put in wondering how you know what weapons
Yes.
you're proficient with? That
Okay,
goes down
perfect.
here, by the way, and that, along with basically every other section we've yet to cover, can be figured out in this next part, which is what I like to call the copying it over from the book section of the character creation, because that's basically all you do for the rest of the sheet. I gotta pick a background, check the player handbook. What proficiencies do I get? Check the player handbook. What about feats and traits? Check the player handbook. What's my starting equipment? Check the player handbook. Or any other supplementary book relevant to your chosen race, class, background, a la Volo's Guide, Xanathar's Guide,
Does he have a
writing, etc.
special-
And
no,
with all
he
that
doesn't.
done,
There's
congratulations,
Awaken,
you now
but
have a completed and fully functioning
not
character
necessary
sheet
here.
ready to be used once, then completely lost, then found again once you've already redone a second one, or if you're lucky, one that will be used consistently over the course of several years to the point where there's more eraser skid marks than pencil lead, and the once firm sheet of paper turning as soft as a tissue person's dick after seeing you in the shower. Now you know how to use a character sheet. You're
What?
welcome.
Hey, you kind of forgot to write your backstory.
Fuck! So
There's
you've
an
got a character sheet
alternative
all written
rule
out and a
where you
couple
get
of
a
friends who
pool
want to play
of
D&D, but
points.
you're missing one vital component. The
So you
world,
get
the
20, you can
characters,
spend
the
points
laws of
equal to
physics
the levels
everyone's
from
gonna
your
break to
pool.
make for cool
Ah,
moments you'll
okay.
commission artists on the internet to draw for you. But such a role requires leadership, initiative, a total willingness to have a bunch of children stomp on all your ideas in favor of doing funny memes and stupid scenarios. Despite all that, such a title has an extremely low barrier to entry and is probably the most important thing at your entire role-playing table, and without one, the game will not exist. So anybody and everybody should perform the duty at least once for the sake of their fellow players begging for a chance to experience this wonderful pastime, so long as I don't have to be the one to do it.
So long as I don't have to be
What?
the one to do it. Yeah, no one wants to do it. Uh-oh.
Fine.
Welcome to a crap guide to Dungeons and Dragons.
Uh-oh.
The Dungeon Master, or Game Master if you like clay in your soup, is the mind behind the magic and who decides
boy.
just about everything that happens in the game besides the player's own choices. Your role as a DM is to control and describe literally every single little detail that happens during the game, as you are the game. The game cannot exist
You are
without a
the
Dungeon
game.
Master. As the DM,
Oh,
you
shit,
call
I didn't mean to
shots
do that.
based on how the rules work, or if you don't like the rules, and say
That was a
shoot that
waste.
poot and come up with your own. Otherwise, how else are you supposed to know if your rules lawyering player is giving you correct information and isn't just making an elaborate manipulative plot to trick you into giving them a pet displacer beast? Fortunately for you, if you aren't sure or don't remember how a certain rule
This
works, you
episode
can
hits
always
me
just
right
look
in
it
the
up
feels
because
and
being
does
a
not
good
stop
DM
while
is
I'm
about
down.
applying information,
I'm
not
sorry.
memorizing it, unlike the American education system. Outside of the rules, though, you are the bridge between the players and the fantasy world they're playing in, describing everything that's going on in excruciating detail, like a radio show, but with a lot more awkward pauses. Everything they fuck, marry, or kill is through the context of how you describe it, which means you have to be incredibly deliberate with your vocabulary and respect the Oxford comma, or else you might make the wrong translation of what's going on in your brain to the players, who may then think the innocent bystander NPC is actually a murderer, because you accidentally stuttered when voicing them, saying they were just doing their tasks. There are quite a few ways information can be put across to the players, and it all comes down to the DM's preferred style of presentation.
Presentation.
Depictions of the nerd ritual often show an ornately carved and treated mahogany table, players dressed in professional cosplay on par with 2000s Hollywood costumes, atmospheric mood lighting that'll make a hardcore
Was
down
that-
blush, background
one of
music and ambience that's like a spa.
One of those
day for your
people in
ear
that
canals,
picture
and
was
detailed
dressed as the
miniatures,
evil
maps, and
queen
set
from
pieces painted by
Snow
angels
White, I
using
think.
brushes made from the nose hairs of the gods. Now, do you need all these fancy, expensive, and superfluous amounts of presentation and stimulus in order to have a worthwhile Dungeons and Dragons experience for your players? Of course you do. Fork it over, bitch. Your wallet could lose a few extra pounds. But even with all the fanciest of theatrics, every Dungeon Master has to rely on the ever-prevalent theater of the mind, where everyone has to use their imagination to visualize what's happening in your grand spanking
gosh, that
fantasy
hurts
world.
a lot.
So a game of D&D doesn't have to cost hundreds of dollars and can be anything from a massive theatrical event to a hangout with the bros with cardboard cutout minis to even sitting in a restaurant with napkins for character sheets and the salt and pepper shakers or the evil queen of spice and her angry white steed. No matter what, you'll always eventually have to rely on the most useful creation of all mankind that can raise armies and fell nations. Words. Never underestimate the power of a good thesaurus, because inevitably there will be a situation where all your fancy props won't suffice and you will have to learn how to use Old English vernacular. As the DM, most of your responsibility all boils down to allowing the players to interact with your grand spanking fantasy world. And how they do that can be summarized in one simple action: rolling dice. When a player wants to do something, anything, the DM is the one who decides if the player rolls dice, what dice they roll, and the outcome of the roll of the dice. Then just about everything else is an extension of that one single responsibility, which is why nobody wants to do it, because one single responsibility is far too many. An extension of that, the DM's the encyclopedia of the D&D game. If there's history in the world, it's the DM's job to know it. When the players are fighting bad guys, it's the DM's job to keep track of the enemy's abilities, hit points, and sexual orientation, just in case you never know. If a player resurrects their long-dead uncle, it's the DM's job to have read their backstory to know said uncle was a drunk rocketeer who eats horseshoe crabs. And when the players bring up how the plot and characters are oddly similar to Lord of the Rings, it's the DM's job to kick their ass. The scariest part about being a Dungeon Master, however, is the improv. Since you can't anticipate every single possible possibility the players can possibly make possible, you have to think on the fly and figure out how those possible things could be possible. If the player character tries to eavesdrop on somebody, you have to come up with what they hear. If somebody eats too many beans and farts, you gotta come up with how it smells. And if the party decides to run off some other direction rather than the main plot, you have to come up with what they run into, like another town or a dangerous hag or even the main plot, because you moved it over there since the giant glowing breadcrumbs in the shape of story progress this way wasn't obvious enough. If you think you can prepare pre-written answers for every possible question the players could come up with, I'm gonna have to stop you right there, because no the fuck you can't. Somebody at some point in time will do something that'll turn your no pants bad dreams into a reality, and you gotta figure out then and there whether you're gonna get a new pair or just roll with it while the players see your metaphorical junk swaying in the breeze. So with all that easy to digest and totally not intimidating stack of expectations that doesn't even scratch the surface of what it takes to be a Dungeon Master out of the way, the question now becomes, how does one even start being a Dungeon Master?
Just do it!
No matter what,
Just
you want a
do
copy of
it!
the player handbook, since it has a majority of the most common rules. As far as actual content goes, though, the most baby-friendly way is to purchase a pre-written adventure, one of these buggers, which will usually have a plot, characters, encounters, villains, and plenty of faffing about material for your players. However, if that's too much punishment on your wallet, the natural safe word is making a campaign of your own. The thing about safe words, though, is it often stops things in their tracks, so it will require you to come up with most of the aforementioned plot, characters, encounters, villains, and faffing material yourself, which can take anywhere from a night of binge writing to never, because you only ever think about your ideas and never write it down. Either way you go with, once you have the skeleton of your campaign ready, you gotta start filling it with internal organs. And as anyone who's taken biology can tell you, organs are gross and messy and can often go misplaced, so you just have to substitute a kidney with a moldy sponge for a bit while you go find it. That is until suddenly the blood cells start making friends with the sponge and it becomes more effective than an actual kidney, and you start to question everything you've ever learned in school. So good fucking luck figuring out how to balance spending time preparing to run a campaign and spending time actually running a campaign. Do you spend entire weeks drawing maps, writing possible paths and dialogue options for characters down to the description of their cousin's boyfriend's dog's favorite chew toy? Or do you just spend the week doing some faffing about of your own and then spend the final half hour leading up to the session time frantically writing down bits from a D&D random content generator? But hey, once you get a game going, the rest should come naturally. Just take it all one step at a time, and you can especially relax whenever the players start to roleplay and act on their own, because then you can just sit back and relax and let them have their fun, and you don't even have to do dialogue for any NPCs or lore dump on them, or "God fuck, the rogue tried to steal the paladin's rosary beads." Yes, the dirty whale's underbelly of being a dungeon master is dealing with the barnacle infestation that is being the de facto babysitter of the group, and then you gotta bring
Yeah,
up the scraper
yeah.
of social obligation. In some situations, more than others, the DM is expected to have a significant amount of say in organizing the playgroup since you have something of a larger leadership role for the game to exist than the players. You're who the players will look to when arguing over who gets the loot. You will be expected to have a bigger say on when the next session time will be, and you are the one who's expected to kick out the guy who's overriding your descriptions of a pleasant.
Stop the video for now. Oh my gosh, and then go back to the ship so we can have some music. All right, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up there. Thank you all so much for joining me today. We made good progress, actually. We really did. We got them to, we're getting everyone to level 37 now. So we're that much closer to level 40. We finally figured out the the technique to dealing with those gray curls and the lunar viruses. It makes it so much easier by using stop, like a million times easier. So yeah, that's definitely what the guide meant by knowing what your party is capable of and using the right combination of party members to deal with whatever you need to deal with. Yeah. So it's fun, I'm glad. Okay. Let's see. So tomorrow is Thursday. No stream tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a rest day. Then we're gonna have our usual Genshin stream on Friday. But as usual, if anything does change, I will let you all know. And I think that is it, I think. Okay, yeah. Thank you all so much again for joining me today. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the stream. Please leave a comment if you would like to share your thoughts. Please subscribe on YouTube and or follow on Twitch if you'd like to see more Final Fantasy streams. Thank you again to Beauregard for the raid, and thank you to the raiders who came by. And if you're going to bed, I hope you rest well and have sweet dreams. If your day's just getting started, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And I hope to see you all on Friday. Ta-ta! Otsumika!